Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, what condition my condition was in.
Alon! Do you think you could tell a lot about a man, judging by his ringtone?
Ooh, yes, definitely. So, like, one of my favorite ringtones back when we had the old phones was "Hips Don't Lie" by Shakira.
Ah,
Yeah.
with Wyclef Jean.
Yes.
Yes, not a bad song. That's not a bad ringtone there. So, Alon, what do you think that says about you then?
That my hips don't lie,
Like,
and that I'm on tonight.
Damn right you are, Alon. I back in the day, my ringtone when I was in college, my ringtone was Busta Rhymes. Hoo-ha! Got you all in check. And I think that kind of like pretty much epitomized me as like a stoner white kid that liked old school hip hop.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend at the time hated it because every morning when my alarm would go off on my phone, she would wake up to ya 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 ya.
Oh, it's so good, and the music video is amazing too.
Busta Rhymes, I will debate with anybody. He is the king of music videos.
Oh yeah, no, he had some good ones. Yeah, that one's. I love that song. I also love Dave Chappelle's riff on it too, as Howard Dean. Did you ever see that skit?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, he had some good. He had a good music video. What was it? Ass on Fire. Him and
Ass
Pharrell.
on Fire's not bad. He had a great one. My all-time favorite is "Give Me Some More," where he literally it changes to everything he's rapping about. Like he has like cartoonish backgrounds. Put Your Hands Where My Eyes Can See, which was like they were kind of doing a parody of Coming to America. The one he does with Janet Jackson, where he's basically like a sperm and rapping with
I
her.
remember that one. Yep.
Highly suggestive. My mom didn't like that one when I was a kid. But yeah, Busta Rhymes, all-time in music videos. But when it comes to ringtones, I haven't had a ringtone on my phone in a long-ass time. It's probably the basic one, the one that Fernando Mendoza has, and we'll play in a little bit here. I haven't, my phone's always on vibrate. I haven't unsilenced my phone in years. So I can't remember the last time I've heard actually a ringtone on my phone. So people are calling Fernando Mendoza an unk and kind of nerdy for his ringtone, but I probably have the same one if I check my phone probably.
Can you still get? I mean, you can still get ringtones, right? Remember, it used to be like a thing. You text a number or whatever the case was, or go on the little. I'm remembering the old days with like the flip phones and the keyboards, but you can still get ringtones on like an iPhone. No one does though.
Yeah, I mean, yes, of course, it's still ringtones, and you could probably get like alert message or like alert tones when you get a text message or whatever. But I always have my phone on vibrate, so I really have not heard my phone ring in a long, long time. The reason we bring this up is because Fernando Mendoza, when he got drafted by the Las Vegas Raiders, people are clowning him because he's got like a very mom and dad type ringtone where it's kind of Looney Tunes-esque, where it does a like we played a real quick Alon where Fernando Mendoza, people kind of give him shit for a lot of different things, for being kind of nerdy and saying the cliche things in press conferences, but yeah, I think his ringtone's kind of appropriate here.
How you doing? Just Fight Tech. I appreciate you calling. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can't wait to prove it to y'all. Yes, sir. Ready to get to work and ready to learn. Pumped. Thank you again. Bye.
Very nice. Very nice with his family, and we knew he wasn't going to be there. I don't even know if that's his phone. Do we know for sure that's his phone and not his agent's?
That's a great question too, because of the whole how everybody's phone numbers get leaked now. Yeah, that's a really good point, Derek.
Yeah, judging from last year with what happened, it was Shedeur Sanders and who's my guy? Jeff Ulbrich, the defensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons. I'm assuming that's his phone. and a lot's going on, a large party, all of his friends and family there, so he wants to hear the ringtone. I can give a shit about the ringtone, but it was funny. It was definitely a mom and dad type ringtone, Fernando Mendoza. Just your opinion, man. Alon to say, Derek Papa, we're coming to you on a Sunday morning, and we're going to recap everything NFL draft. The Raiders finally got their guy, Fernando Mendoza. We'll go through their draft as well, along with the 49ers draft. I see some fans on social media not happy about it, but I don't know what people were anticipating with a 49ers draft. It's always not going to be what the consensus thinks. But let's start with let's start with you, Alon, because you're in Las Vegas and you were there for the Raiders draft party on Thursday night. You didn't go to the one on Friday night with Fernando Mendoza, but what was the experience like being there on Thursday night when they got the first overall pick?
It was awesome. I mean, last year's was really fun too. I think last year's was a little more fun in a way, just because we didn't start off with the first pick being the whole reason for the party. So there was a little bit of buildup, you know. The doors did open at about 3:30 or 3 p.m. and they have it at the Chaos Pool Club there at the Palms and everything. It was great. You know, JT the Brick comes out, talks to everybody. They had players inside, like Tim Brown and Marcus Allen were there, and Lincoln Kennedy, of course. Kirk Morrison was there as well. So, I mean, it was really fun. They had free cigars, which was great, you know, Modelo's and cocktails everywhere, all inclusive. So, and free admission. So, I mean, a really, really fun party. The environment was good. Everyone erupted. We all knew Fernando Mendoza was going to get picked. Yeah. Everybody was super happy, but you know, the setup was great. I mean, to be able to go, and the weather was great. We didn't have like crazy winds that day or anything. So it was really nice. And, I think Flo Rida showed up as well and did a performance too, which is very Las Vegas. Just hey, who's in town right now, or you know what's going on. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun. I wanted to go to the event on Friday too. That was actually at the HQ in Henderson, but my allergies been so bad, and I was just like, if I go there, I'm gonna have to like bring like 18 tissue boxes with me because it was just horrible. So I didn't go to the one on Friday, but it was fun, man. People were hyped. People were really stoked. And then it's great because at the Palms, they got the big marquee that goes up the side of one of the hotel towers. Yeah. And so last year when Genty got picked, they put that up there. They kept it up there all day. Same thing with Mendoza. So it was really cool to, you know, see that from, you know, even a mile away. You could see Fernando Mendoza's big face with #1 overall draft pick on the side of the building. But it was a fun time. I think, I mean, I'm sure other teams do big draft parties too. I think every team should do something like this. It's a great way to reward season ticket holders, people who are just NFL fans in general. There were a few people wearing like Steelers stuff actually, and I'm like, wow, how the really hell did how the hell did you get in here? I mean, it was like 99%, close to 100% Raider fans. I saw like 3 people in other jerseys, and I was like, you must be with someone who is a Raider fan or something like that. But it was good. It was really fun.
We had a good time, too, even though the 49ers did not have a draft pick on Thursday night in the first round. We had a fun time at Jack's Restaurant and Bar. Me, Marcus Boucher, and Adam Copeland. All of the Phil showed up, and some people from the chat showed up as well. So we had a good time. And a few Raider fans actually showed up to the draft party as well to get ready for Fernando Mendoza being taken first overall. Still got some like I guess not East Bay love, but South Bay love for the Raiders in San Jose. And they're still popular here to some degree, not as it used to be, but still like some interest. So you missed the Friday party, Alon, where Fernando Mendoza took the stage, and we know he drops an F-bomb from time to time. We saw it in the post-game interview when Indiana won the national championship over Miami. Fernando Mendoza dropped a "Let's fucking go." He did it again. Did it again on Friday night with Raider Nation in attendance.
Hey, let's fucking go. I appreciate it. I love you guys. It means the world to us. Thank you guys again. Let's go, baby.
There you go, man. There you go. That's how you ingratiate yourself with Raider Nation, is you got to drop some F-bombs. We're not going to see him drinking and smoking and, you know, getting with the ladies, but Fernando Mendoza can drop an F-bomb from time to time. And yeah, man, like, when I first learned about this kid a year ago when he was at Cal, he had a great performance against Miami and the #1 overall pick last year in Cam Ward. And I didn't think he was going to become, what he is right now. But he played well, and I remember that game that Cal had against Stanford where he had that post-game press conference where he was like, we live for this, man. We prepared for this. I'm so emotional. And we were all making fun of him here in the Bay Area. But, he was a good quarterback. Then he goes to Indiana, and, yeah, he's this, this dorky, cerebral, unbelievable quarterback. And he's not an all-time prospect, but he's a guy that you like. He's a guy that he reminds me of like my little brother. Like, he's just a kid that has the whole world in front of him. And just hearing him talk in these press conferences, you could tell that he is the right decision. He may not be an all-time prospect in the same vein as like an Andrew Luck or a Trevor Lawrence or a Caleb Williams even, but he gets it. He understands. And I go back to 20 years ago. This is the second time the Raiders have had the first overall pick. So I was there in Radio City Music Hall when Jamarcus Russell was drafted by the Oakland Raiders. I was there with my pops, and I flew out, and it was a big deal because, God, I remember that, and you remember it well too, Alon, that 2006 season. It was terrible. And they needed to go in a different direction as far as quarterback. They had Aaron Brooks and Andrew Walter. The offensive line was putrid. And Al Davis was in love with the big arm quarterback. I don't know where Jamarcus Russell would go today in today's NFL draft. Probably at the bottom of the first round. He had all the tangibles as far as like a prospect. He wasn't an all-time prospect, but Mike Mayock always says it was the best pro day he ever saw. Where people always say this: he had the capabilities of throwing on his knees from the 50, and he could throw the football out of the stadium. But did he have it? Did he have everything as far as the work ethic and wanting to study? So I remember being there in Radio City Music Hall, and me, my father, and his producer for the Silver and Black show were the only people representing the Raiders besides, I want to say it was Al's brother who was turning the card in. So as soon as Jamarcus Russell gets drafted, he's in his all black suit and the Raider hat. He comes off the stage, and backstage, it's me, my father, and the Silver and Black show producer. And I guess Jamarcus noticed my father from a previous interview. He goes up to him. He goes, "What's up, coach?" And then my dad goes, "Jamarcus, you're going to be great for us." And then Jamarcus literally says, "I came to play football, coach." And I was like, oh, man. He doesn't realize that my dad's just an announcer. And, whatever. Like, as soon as you're drafted, like, who do you, yeah. The microphone should have been a dead giveaway. But, you're a kid from college. You don't know any better. You don't know any better. So he thinks that he's, affiliated with the team in, a bigger capacity. And we all know what happened with Jamarcus Russell. He didn't work hard. That was back in the era where there was no salary cap when it came to quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks, making at most $22 million a year. The last guy to get that was Sam Bradford. Jamarcus Russell held out. He didn't get to training camp until late, and he wanted to be the highest paid quarterback in all of football. Then eventually he got that, which was absolutely ridiculous. I know that the market changes every now when someone's up for a new contract, but think about that. Rookie quarterbacks were getting top dollar quarterback money, and that set Jamarcus up for failure. He did not work hard. We all know about his whole thing with the codeine, the purple drink. It was just a bad situation. And Al argued with every coach. Lane Kiffin didn't want him in the first place, but he said, Jamarcus is going to be a great quarterback. Get over it. He was not a great quarterback. He had all of the capabilities of being a great quarterback, but he just didn't want to work hard. And he was out of the league. He was drafted in 2007. I want to say he was released by 2010. That's how bad it was. 2009, he was dreadful. The numbers were absolutely abysmal. He was benched for Bruce Gradkowski. And, yeah, it was an all-time bad move. I saw Jamarcus recently in an interview. He was on a podcast where some guy was calling him out saying he's, an all-time bust. He is the all-time bust. And he was like, that's not fair to say, man. Like, you could say that shit when we're, behind closed doors. But you say that shit to me out in public, I'm going to bust you in your mouth. And I understand he's frustrated by that, but Jamarcus is an all-time bust. He's, in my opinion, worse than Ryan Leaf. And I saw Ryan Leaf at a young age and didn't really understand the failure that he went through. But Jamarcus just witnessing that the day that he was drafted and his Raider career after that, it was terrible. And now the Raiders, 20 years later, have the first overall pick for the second time in franchise history, and they draft another quarterback. And this guy is the antithesis of Jamarcus Russell. I'm not going to say that he's going to be an all-time quarterback, but he's humble, he's confident, he's willing to learn, and he has the leadership qualities. And I think that I don't know what's going to happen his first year as far as playing time. And I think that Kirk Cousins most likely will start, and I think that will benefit Fernando Mendoza. But I think it's a perfect marriage between him and Clint Kubiak. He'll be set up in a great position where he doesn't have to play right away, and all of his limitations he could work on. And I think that this will be a quarterback-friendly offensive scheme for him. So, yeah, we can all make fun of him for being very cheesy and cliche in his press conferences. I like the fact that he acknowledges the history and tradition of the Raiders, acknowledging the other Hispanic quarterbacks that came before him and Jim Plunkett and Tom Flores. So again, I don't think that this guy is going to be an all-time NFL quarterback. I think he could change things with his franchise, but I think it's definitely more promise than what Jamarcus Russell brought to the team 20 years ago.
I agree. It's not even close. I mean, this, you don't have to have any, because in retrospect, and you were there to see Jamarcus Russell call your father coach, which that's hilarious. I didn't know that.
I came to play football, coach. That
is so good. I love the attitude. I don't like the fact that anyway, Coach Greg, but you don't have to worry about any of these kinds of things with Fernando Mendoza. He still comes off as very wet behind the ears. I mean, he reminds me of an intern in a way. He's like, oh, I'm okay. Yeah, I'll be there. I'm excited to learn. I'm excited for that. And it's great. It's a great attitude to have. And I love that. I mean, you'd rather have that than the opposite. I think he is supremely confident in what he can do, but I also think he's so conscious about his own journey that he's had to the NFL and to the status that he has now. I mean, he realizes that he didn't have any D1 offers except outside of Cal, and that, he had to go through what he went through at Cal, and it definitely developed him. I mean, you and I have said it before, Derek, the Cal tape is amazing. Not that the Indiana tape isn't great to watch and what he did there, but it's amazing to see what he did with a cast of other players that were not on the same level as what he had, or the coaching that he had at Indiana under Curt Cignetti. So yeah, it's a total, correct step in the right direction. It is something that Raider fans were not used to over the past 18-ish years. I would say. I mean, post 2002, Al Davis is reaching a lot for different picks because he's really in that win now mode and hadn't, he just thought, I'll get the player that I like and they'll play for me. And that's just not the way the world was working anymore. And this alleviates all those kinds of concerns. It's a great draft pick, and they needed a quarterback. That's the other thing. So it's great when a team needs a position and then they're able to draft the consensus kind of overall number one guy in that year for that need. And he brings all these leadership qualities. So there's really nothing bad to say about the pick. I agree with you. He's not an all-time prospect when it comes to the tangibles, but we know as fans and as people covering the game that you don't need to be an all-time prospect to be a successful player. You just don't. And that's kind of the career arc that if he has a good career, he's set up for. He's set up to be a very good player if his career goes well, and he will look back and say, maybe the intangibles do matter sometimes. Maybe the things that happen up here are the most important for a quarterback, assuming that, they can throw the ball and do the right things physically, which he can.
No, 100%. And I think that the best example of that is his minority owner right now in Tom Brady, where he didn't have all of those attributes. You look at the tape of him at the combine, he's just this skinny, frail kid with his shirt off and shorts. And then he became arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. And I will say, Fernando Mendoza, he makes me laugh. He reminds me of me or our guy. There's a guy that used to work at KMBR. He just left on Friday, actually, young Tony. He's on the board. He's a board op for the morning show. And he kind of reminds me of Fernando Mendoza, where he's young, he's eager, and he's just willing to work hard every single day. But just like me when I was growing up in radio, I refer to everybody as Mister. Let me change the line here real quick. What's going on with your internet, man? You got to change your
No,
boxes.
it's my keyboard.
Oh, your keyboard. Gotcha. Okay. So anyway, as I was saying, with when I was growing up in sports media, the same thing with young Tony. We referred to everybody as Mister. Like back in the day when I used to book Matt Mayoko on with Haberman and Middlecoff, I call him Mr. Mayoko, and then eventually he was like, Derek, you don't need to call me Mr. Mayoko. You've texted me like 15 times already. You can call me Matt. And that's just like the same thing with Fernando Mendoza, where he's calling Tom Brady Mr. Brady, Brian Greasy Mr. Greasy. He just has respect. He is a respectful young kid. And that's the thing that also kind of not concerns me, but he has a lot of, I don't know, boyish charm, I guess, where you kind of think of him as a kid, but not really a man yet. And I wonder when that's going to happen, where he's a man's man. Like when you think of the Raiders, you think of Ken Stabler, you think of Darryl LaMonica, you think of rugged, tough guys that would, go pick a fight, in the black hole before a game and then go out and throw 5 touchdown passes hungover. That's not the case, though. We've seen Derek Carr. He was Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, too. The same thing can be the case for Fernando Mendoza. But also, Fernando Mendoza needs to be that leader of men. And as long as he plays well, I don't have any concerns. But also, like, Max Crosby was on his podcast, and I think that in his mind at the time, he was talking – this was months ago, too. This was before the trade and everything. But I think he was kind of over it when it came to the silver and black, and he was there. I think he was kind of mocking Fernando Mendoza in a way. I shouldn't say mocking, but kind of just being like, he called him a kid and kind of laughed at him a little bit. And I don't think that Max Crosby thinks he's a joke or anything. I think it's just like, all right, I got to teach this kid how to be, he was going to be the quarterback of my football team. I got to be that leader. And I think that also Fernando Mendoza has to show that it's different than the rah-rah stuff in college. It's when you're talking to men. And he'll learn that. He'll soak everything up from Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is also Mr. Cheesy. But when it's time to, go into a locker room and give a fiery, passionate speech saying you like that, guys are fighting behind him. And that will come with time with Fernando Mendoza. But, yeah, man, I watch him. And, yes, he's not an all-time prospect. Go like, oh, my God, this is a slam dunk. He does a lot of great things, though. He's decisive with the football. His mobility is better than what people give him. I just think there's a lot that he needs to learn, but that's the case with any young quarterback. So, yes, I thought it was more impressive, Alon. We talked about it with the Cal tape where he didn't have so much talent around him, and he was throwing from the air raid more than the RPO stuff with Indiana. But as long as he is the same guy that we always seen from Cal to Indiana to now in the pros, I think he'll be a perfect marriage with him and Clint Kubiak.
Yeah, it's the perfect situation for Fernando. He's in there with a coach who is going to get him up to speed in terms of what the NFL requires. And sorry, I'm getting that horrible echo. If you could kick the other one out there.
I'm trying to, man, but I don't think I can. I think you got to remove it. Oh. I just see edit name. I don't think I'm able to remove that one.
Interesting. Hold on.
Getting a little echo here.
Yeah.
Nope. Now we got no Alons.
Oh, that's so weird. Hold on. I'm apologize. I pressed a button on my keyboard and it duplicated the window.
Let me see if hold on. No, I'm not able to remove you from the studio, man. That's okay. We'll figure out what's going on with Alon and he'll get back on the stream with us. Maybe he just needs to exit entirely. Let me know when you're good to go, Alon. But yeah, I think when it comes to Fernando Mendoza, it's promising. And I think that, people, I guess Ian Rappaport during the broadcast last night or on the first round was saying that Kirk Cousins going to start the season. And I would think so with the money that he was making this season. I think that they'll slow play it with Fernando Mendoza. And you hear Tom Brady talk all the time about building up quarterbacks, not wanting them to be in a bad situation. You heard that from Kevin O'Connell, where organizations fail QBs, then young QBs fail organizations. And I think Tom Brady agrees with that. I think he's referenced that Kevin O'Connell quote numerous times. So he wants the same situation that he was in. And Again, Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick, so not the same. But he learned from Drew Bledsoe that first year, didn't play, I think, at all in 2000, and then he got his opportunity and climbed the depth chart to become that second-string quarterback. Alon's back with us, but yeah, Alon, I was just talking about how I think that Fernando Mendoza will be put in a better situation than some of these other young QBs like Caleb Williams or Cam Ward, Trevor Lawrence, all just thrown into the fire right away, where Fernando Mendoza will probably, I mean, he has the best situation I've seen in quite some time. Even Baker Mayfield didn't start right away, but he started by week 3 after Tyrod Taylor, I want to say, got hurt or just wasn't playing well that Thursday night game against the New York Jets. But it's perfect to learn from Kirk Cousins, a guy that knows the Clint Kubiak scheme, a guy that has a similar skill set to him, and a guy that's similar personality. It's just a question of when he's going to play. There was a big debate between Daniel Jeremiah and Charles Davis about this on the NFL Network broadcast. But I do believe that Fernando Mendoza will sit to start the season. He will play, though, whether it's week 5 or week 8. Eventually, he will play this season. It's just a matter of how long it's going to be. But, yeah, I think he's set up for success immensely than other quarterbacks in recent years.
So, yeah, I agree with that, Derek, and I do apologize. So I have this button on my keyboard that minimizes everything, and then I can't get it back. So I need to, get rid of that button somehow. Anyway, that's what's happened the last couple episodes. I've fat-fingered it. But this is the question I have. I think Fernando Mendoza should play this season, but it's a question of what if Kirk Cousins performs well? So does Mendoza just sit the entire year? I mean, that would mean that they're like a 10-win team, right? And I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. But if they're like a 7-win team, does Mendoza get in even if Kirk Cousins is not the reason for the losses? That's kind of the perplexing part for me, because when is the right time to put this guy in? And I know that the philosophy right now in the NFL is, hey, throw him in now, which is not what the Raiders are doing. That's why they went and got Kirk Cousins. But eventually you do need to see if the guy can sink or swim, whether he's going to swim or he's going to sink. So I kind of wonder, even if Kirk Cousins is playing well, what happens, how that whole process looks. I mean, in a way, that's a really good problem to have if Kirk Cousins does end up playing really well. But in another way, it's like, shit, when do we make that change?
That's a good problem to have. You worry about that when you can, because if the Raiders are having a good season, just roll with it then. You worry about Fernando Mendoza later on. It's even better for him. It's more advantageous for him where he just can sit behind Kirk Cousins and learn from a quarterback that's winning with this team. And, Kirk Cousins hasn't been the same guy in recent years. He had a great start to the season in 2024 when he was the quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons and then got benched, primarily because he got hurt. If you watch the quarterback show, he got a hit during that Saints game, and he wasn't the same after that. So he has lesser talent than he had in Atlanta. He's got Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers, but the wide receiving core is not fantastic. We'll see what happens with Cousins. You worry about that down the line. I do think that probably Fernando Mendoza will start, but if the Raiders are winning, you keep rolling with Kirk Cousins. But then again, if it's where Mendoza sits the entire year, I think it only helps him in the long run. But he does need to play eventually. He was drafted 1st overall. This led to an interesting conversation between Daniel Jeremiah and Charles Davis, where they were debating, does he need to play right away? And Charles Davis had the mindset that, yes, when you draft a quarterback 1st overall, we're in a new day and age, these guys play. And Daniel Jeremiah said, no, everything that I was talking about, Tom Brady has a different philosophy, everything that Clint Kubiak has been talking about. So, if you want to play the clip halfway through, this is where Charles Davis and Daniel Jeremiah have not really a heated debate, but one that's going to be talked about probably in training camp and as the season starts. Who should start for this team? Should it be the guy that was drafted 1st overall or the quarterback that has a ton of experience in Kirk Cousins?
I will disagree with you. Charles Davis late in the draft is my favorite Charles Davis.
Last I checked, Tom Brady hasn't been in this role for any other team, and Tom Brady's been on national airways forever talking about how this league fails quarterbacks and how they don't do it properly. And he went through this himself.
And let's wait and see what Tom does.
He went through this himself. He's got his guy in place with Kirk Cousins.
Drew Bledsoe was sitting there.
I know, and Kirk Cousins is an accomplished
Tom was
player
a
in this
6th round
league.
pick.
He's an accomplished player in this
Tom
league.
was a sixth-round
Kirk Cousins
pick.
is not some
He was
scrub.
not a first-round pick.
He's not going to rush him on the field. I'm just telling you. He's not going to do it.
He will tell us that now.
They're
History
not
has
in any
showed us.
hurry.
Let's
They
wait
just
and see.
hired the head coach. He just got there. There's no rush. They're in no hurry.
so let me ask you this.
Now, he's
By
not
the
going
way-
to start right away. I promise you.
Okay, so then let me ask you
I
this.
can't wait to see this.
Maybe it's not right away, but let me ask
Be
you this.
earlier than you
I'm going to give you on Friday on my show, the Rich Eisen show, 12 to 3 Eastern. We have a
Nice
segment
plug,
called
Rich.
What's
Yeah.
More Likely? Okay, my guy Chris Brockman asks me all sorts of questions and puts me in positions. I'll put you in the position he put me in the other day. What's more likely? What's more likely to be higher? Number of Fernando Mendoza starts this year? Raiders draft position in next year's NFL draft. What number is higher?
Ooh, I'm going to say that he's going to start 7 games. this
Okay.
year.
And so,
Kirk Cousins will get him past the halfway mark.
okay. So 7 games.
Start 7 games, and I'm going to say that the Raiders are picking 9 next year.
So okay. What about you?
Oh, draft position.
But you think that he's going to be? I thought
No,
you said
I'm sorry. Starts.
So starts.
The number of starts for him.
starts.
Starts.
So he said 7 starts.
He
How
said
many starts
starts.
do you think he gets?
12 minimum.
I mean, geez, Chuck, the way you were talking, you would have thought he was going to start the first day of minicamp.
The way you were
And now you've already given him a 5 weeks for Kirk Cousins after you just said no chance.
the way you were talking, he was going to sit the entire year, and you got him giving 7
Goodness,
starts.
what an oversell.
Oh, please, you oversold that like crazy. He's not going to rush him in. He's
not.
going
He's
to
gonna
watch
sit
him
him for
play.
at least a half
And you're
Amazing.
giving him 7 starts.
Christmas, you threw him in
7
the starting
starts.
lineup before
If
he
he's not
signed
going
his
to rush him
contract.
in, and they've got a confident guy, then he sits all year long.
Yeah, and then it led to Ian Rappaport being like, man, with all this synergy going on, NFL Network's turned into a First Take already.
Look at that
Well,
list, though, Derek. I mean,
yeah.
So who are the guys in front of these guys? Not a single one had a Kirk Cousins in front of them.
Exactly.
So, I mean, Caleb Williams got to come in and had to start right away. Cam Ward had Will Levis in front of him. We don't need to get into that. Bryce Young had no one in front of him. Trevor Lawrence, same thing. Joe Burrow, same thing. Kyler Murray, same thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, Fernando Mendoza doesn't have to start right away.
No, he doesn't. And I'm in agreement with Daniel Jeremiah where I don't think it's anything crazy. Yeah, he's going to start next year, but it's going to be something around 7 games. And I say, yeah, the Raiders improved to probably drafting in the first round at 9. Nothing crazy this year, not a huge turnaround. We still got to see the schedule come out and everything. But yeah, I think that Charles could be right. It could be where Fernando Mendoza starts week 6, where Kirk Cousins gets off to a bad start, throws some interceptions, and they want to go to the franchise QB already. To me, there is no wrong answer. Even if Fernando Mendoza beats out Kirk Cousins, that's incredible. That would be a good, sign of the future for Mendoza. So, whatever the debate was between Charles Davis and Daniel Jeremiah, I think it was a little too much. In the end, like it's playful. They're good friends. It's not like anything like a debate on ESPN where you're wrong, no, you're stupid. It's interesting. Yes, all the QBs that you just showed, Alon, that went first overall since 2019, they did not have a good quarterback. And honestly, none of them had, I should say, a good backup quarterback to learn from. None of them had a mentor. That's why that's why that's led to them not having success. Caleb Williams has been a better NFL quarterback last year, but who's he learning from? Tyson Bagent? No. Like, I don't even know who Kyler Murray's backup quarterback was in 2019. None of these guys had any pressure on them or competition. And I think that Fernando Mendoza is going to thrive off of that, especially from an aging quarterback in Kirk Cousins, who only has a few years left in the NFL. So, yeah, to me, it doesn't matter. We'll see what happens when we get to training camp. If Fernando Mendoza looks unbelievable, then he'll start. If not, if he still needs to grow, or maybe even if he is amazing, maybe it's best for him to sit. Doesn't matter. The bottom line to me is the Raiders have put themselves in a great position. This is 10 times better than what they were last year or 2 years ago with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. They've had the best quarterbacks. This is their best quarterback situation since they released Derek Carr. And I never thought they had a good answer after that, a good backup plan. They went to Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not an improvement. This is the first time where I feel good about the Raiders and their plans for the future when it comes to quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, this is the last time they had a situation that was like this good, even though the season was terrible, was when they had Matt Schaub and Derek Carr. It's kind of similar to that situation in terms of you're bringing in a young quarterback and you have an established veteran. We didn't know that Matt Schaub was basically kind of shot, basically, like he was kind of washed by that point.
Right.
The team wasn't very good either, so they couldn't give him the support he needed, so he couldn't reproduce what he had done in Houston and or Atlanta. But yeah, I mean, this is a good situation for Fernando Mendoza, and if he does win the job, you're right, Derek. That just says how good he is. I don't think that speaks or would speak to the big decline of Kirk Cousins. It would just mean that Fernando Mendoza is ready to do more in this offense, and Clint Kubiak has the confidence in him and thinks he can get more upside out of him quick than he could out of Kirk Cousins. So yeah, it's a good problem to have. It is the best situation that the Raiders have had, not just at that position since, getting rid of Derek Carr, but it's probably the best situation they've had at that position since, the early 2000s. I mean, this is set up for long-term stability.
Well, no doubt. And I think, Steven and I have kind of overreacted in years past to Raider off seasons and being like, this is going to be different. I'm not going to say that this year. It could be where they have another bad season. Who knows? They're a learning team. But I will say that I think the best thing for this organization is the fact that Max Crosby came back. And he was failed on the physical. I think that it's clear he wanted to go because he was angry with the situation. But now he sees it as another opportunity to be where he's supposed to be. And I think the best thing for Fernando Mendoza is to still have that leader on defense. And we saw over the weekend they traded Tyree Wilson. We'll get to that a little bit, but you still have that guy that has that burning desire to win. When you have a regime change, it's easy to move off of guys like with the Giants and Dexter Lawrence. If you have a strong, proven head coach in John Harbaugh, and they still have players on that team to make them potentially a playoff team this season. But for the Raiders, Clint Kubiak is not really a fiery guy from what I've seen. I know that players love him, but I don't know if he's going to be that guy that gives you a, one for the Gipper speech. I do think, though, the fact that Max Crosby is staying, it helps Fernando Mendoza and his confidence, and it helps this team go in the right direction where this is what Max Crosby wanted all along. It could take longer for him to get to the playoffs now, but I think that this offseason showed him that the grass isn't always greener. Just because you go to a team in the Baltimore Ravens and they have, a proven track record of the postseason doesn't mean that you're going to be accepted there. He loves being a Raider, and he'll show the Raider way to Fernando Mendoza. So the future's promising. Want to see if it equates to wins this year. As far as the Raiders draft class in 2026, they traded down in the second round. They passed on Caden McDonald, the defensive tackle from Ohio State, a guy that they could have used, but instead they trade down and they go with Traden Stukes. And correct me if I'm wrong with any of these names, Alon, but he's a safety from Arizona. He's more of a nickel, though. And this offseason, they traded for Teron Johnson, the longtime cornerback from the Buffalo Bills. But I don't know how much longer he'll be there. I think he's got 1 year left on his contract, so it's good to get younger there with Traden Stukes. They also got in the third round Kayron Crawford, an edge from Auburn. He was opposite Keldrell Falk. People say he was a little undersized, but pretty good pass rusher on that Auburn team. And also in the third round, they got Trey Zune the third, a center from Texas A&M. He could play guard or tackle. He looks like more of a versatile offensive lineman, and they need that. Emmanuel Pregnon was also available, but he dropped in the draft and went to Jacksonville. I think it was in the third round. The most interesting draft pick besides Fernando Mendoza, we can elaborate on this one a little bit more, Alon, Jermod McCoy. Now, this is a guy that a lot of people had mocked in the first round because if it wasn't for Mansur Delane, Jerrod McCoy might have been the best cornerback in this draft class for what he did in 2024. But then he gets injured, tears his ACL while he's practicing in the offseason, and he may need another surgery after he had his surgery for the ACL. You don't know about his future in the NFL. It might be short-lived. So we'll see when he plays football. But the fact the Raiders got him in the fourth round, it's kind of like a Mo Hurst situation where people thought that Maurice Hurst, the defensive tackle, I think from Michigan,
Yep,
got drafted by the Raiders, and people said that he was a first round or second round talent, but he had a heart condition. Then he went, I forget what it was, maybe fourth or fifth round. Didn't really pan out in the NFL. So we'll see about Jermon McCoy and his health. But it shows you the Raiders think differently. The Raiders are comfortable with Max Crosby and his longevity in the NFL when the Ravens flunked him on the physical. I'm sure a lot of teams, and it was clear, they were spooked by Jermon McCoy's medical records, and they saw it at the combine where people were like, I don't know about his future in the NFL. So we'll see about that. But the fact that this guy was still available and the potential of what he could bring to this team, I'd say that's probably their second best draft pick.
By far. He's outside of Mendoza that we all knew was going to go to the Raiders. Jermon McCoy is my favorite pick that they made. The fact that they were able to get him in the fourth round is, I think, insane. I understand the teams were apprehensive, but he's so talented. I mean, he was definitely a top 30 player in this draft, and he was the number 2 corner right behind Delane, and not by that far, Derek. I mean, not by that far at all.
Yeah.
And he definitely showed it on tape in 2024 with 4 interceptions. I watched a lot of SEC football. I watched a lot of him play, and he's just a good player. I mean, the problem is, the injury history, but maybe the Raiders go, Max Crosby has been fine with his knee issues over the years. I feel like maybe Jermon McCoy, maybe they're saying this, Jermon McCoy could get with his doctor and make sure his knee's okay, and then we'll see how things go. I mean, the problem is what I was reading is it's not just the ACL, it's that there might be other compounding things around that knee that teams were worried about. So I think in the fourth round, the fact that he was there, the Raiders made an aggressive move to trade up to get him. It might be a little bit of a risk, but I think that's a risk that you can warrant in the fourth round. I mean, the fourth round is where you start picking guys who are either depth guys and or projects that you work on in the long term. This guy doesn't really fit into either. He's not a depth guy immediately. If he plays, he'd probably be a starter sooner rather than later. The project is about his health, not so much his play. So I think in the fourth round, you take I don't even want to use this word, Derek, a flyer on him, but it's just let's find out if his knee can hold up is pretty much what that pick was. And if it holds up, he could be one of the best values in the last couple of years in the draft.
No, absolutely. And I think that them getting him in the fourth round is a steal in some regard, but it also could be a gigantic risk. And it is. With everything we've heard with the medical situation, it could be where he doesn't play football. But the potential and what he could be, I understand why you would make that risk. So we'll see what happens. But if it turns out to be where this guy is just not going to be what we saw in 2024, then it's a wasted draft pick. But at least I like the Raiders going for it with the best player on the table there, available on the board with Jermon McCoy. Then later in the fourth round, they got arguably the third best running back in the draft, Mike Washington Jr., running back from Arkansas. Should complement Genty very well. I don't know what his receiving game is like, Alon, but I think he's kind of similar in Ashton Genty, where he's a physical runner, but I don't know how he is in the receiving game as far as just a third down pass catcher out of the backfield. But we know that Clint Kubiak wants dual running backs in his offensive scheme.
No, you're right. His receiving game is limited. I mean, dump offs and maybe little screens here and there, things like that, like you said, on third down. But he's an absolute burner, and he's a big running back. I mean, he's above 6 foot, and I think he ran like a 4.33 40 at the combine. And so he is fast. He's a very fast running back. I actually thought that was a really good pick. I was very much surprised that, and we'll get into it, I was surprised that the Niners didn't take him or someone like him. Instead, they took Keelan Black from Indiana, about 30 picks earlier. So that was a bit of a head scratcher, but I think really good value for the Raiders. They need 2 backs. Zamir White, that situation isn't really working out, so they need to figure out someone who can bring a little bit of a speed dynamic and a different dynamic than Ashton Genty has. Not that Genty can't get it moving. We've seen him do it on tape, but this guy, Washington can run.
No, it looks like he's got some speed to him. And yeah, Zamir White, I think his days with the Raiders are done, or is he even on the football team anymore, Alon?
I don't think he's there anymore.
Yeah,
I think they cut him.
Yeah, I couldn't even keep track of that. So, we know what Clint Kubiak values in running backs. He had a two-headed backfield in Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker in Seattle. So I'm sure he wants the same situation with the Raiders. To round out the rest of the draft, in the 5th round, they drafted Dalton Johnson, not the Warriors reporter, but Dalton Johnson, the safety from Arizona. He's a true safety, unlike Treydon Stukes, but he's physical. In the 5th round, also, they got, and bear with me here, Hezekiah Masses, the cornerback from Cal, 5 interceptions with Cal a year ago.
Awesome player.
They say he's a little undersized, though.
He is weight-wise. He is a little undersized. So I mean, he's gonna have some problems maybe against some of the more physical receivers in the NFL if he ever does play. But great pick in the 5th round.
And then they end things with Malik Benson, a wide receiver from Oregon, deep ball receiver, probably their punt returner. And then finally in the 7th round, they get Brandon Cleveland, the defensive tackle from NC State. More of a plugger than a playmaker is what Dane Brugler says in his evaluation with the Beast. Just anything stand out with the last few draft picks to you, Alon?
I mean, I like the Dalton Johnson one. I think that provides good depth at the safety position. I also think that he has a skill set that could become kind of that center field player back there for them if he develops. But I mean, all these guys down here at the bottom of the draft, Derek, they're all guys who are developmental depth pieces. So if any of them do end up seeing the field for significant time, that's like a pleasant surprise. I will say this, it doesn't seem like they reached on anybody, which is something that Raider fans and people who cover the Raiders have been accustomed to, that this team reaches, whether it was under Al Davis's leadership or whether it was under Mike Mayock or even under Ziegler.
Yeah,
so
Ziegler, yep.
Yeah, really, it was Tom Telesco who didn't really reach last year, not too much. And then this year it doesn't, or 2 years ago. And then these past 2 years, it seems like, they're getting decent value. Now we got to see how all this shakes out, but I think they had a solid draft overall. I really like, even though it was closer to the top of the draft, I really like the Kieran Crawford pick. He did play on the other side of Falk, but if you watch the way he plays, the guy has an endless motor. I mean, he blows up plays in the backfield. He creates pressure. I mean, he can be a problem. He can be a very good, at least from day one, a very good designated pass rusher. And he works perfectly in the 3-4 system because he can be a stand-up pass rusher. And that's what the Raiders needed. That's why they got rid of Tyree Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to tell with reaches in this draft class because I'll be completely honest. I think that a lot of coaches didn't love this draft class. That's what you saw with Kyle Shanahan trading down a few times. And we'll talk to them. A lot of people think the 49ers reached on their selections, but the Raiders addressed pretty much all of their needs. They needed offensive line help, and they got a versatile offensive lineman in Trey Zun. God knows they needed that help a year ago. They needed a wide receiver. I don't love getting one in the 6th round. We'll see if he even makes the team, but he'll be more of a special teams player. But yeah, for the most part, they addressed everything they needed. I just don't know if they addressed it early on. The Keaton McDonald move would have been great for the Raiders because they need more defensive line help in their 3-4 scheme that they're going to now. But I get it. They liked who they liked. I just think that now, with the wide receiver situation, I don't think you can rely on Jack Besh or Deontay Thornton. I think that they do need a veteran presence there. And there's a lot of guys still available, and Juwan Jennings, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk still. We'll see about that whole situation. We'll talk about that. Stephon Diggs, all 4 of those guys have connection to Clint Kubiak from back in the day, whether it was with the 49ers or the Minnesota Vikings. So we'll see about that. I still think that they can make, even though he didn't stay with the team, like an Amari Cooper move from a year ago where they just need some veteran presence on, the wide receiver room and the defensive line. But for the most part, you never know. Again, like John Spytek's draft class a year ago didn't make an impact on the football team at all, and maybe they will this year. You're hoping that you get more results for this upcoming year because you're going to, rely on a lot of rookies. But today I can't say. I'm not doing draft grades. I have no idea what these guys are going to be. I just think that the Raiders addressed what they needed to in this draft.
Yeah, they did. wide receiver was really the only position they didn't, Derek. And you're right about that until Malik Benson. And there were guys they could have picked. I mean, Denzel Boston was there for them. The wide receiver from Ole Miss that the Niners picked was Stribling was there for that. I mean, there were guys there for Jeremy Menard who got picked by the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, I mean, to me, that kind of signals that Clint Kubiak maybe does have confidence in some of the guys that were drafted last year in terms of Bash and Thornton. I don't know how much confidence that is, but it probably also signals that they're willing to go out there and now seriously considering getting one of these older wide receivers to give some depth and just some stability to that room. But I understand you on the draft grades. I mean, this draft was one where I think you're right. A lot of coaches were like, but I think there's a lot of good depth pieces in this draft. And I think there's good players. I think part of the problem is it just wasn't the sexy skill positions. I think that is one of the biggest issues. And even when it came to the defensive linemen, there was Arvell Reese and there's David Bailey, but I mean, there wasn't just like, oh my gosh, these pass rushers are just popping off the film. It wasn't like that. But I think there's a lot of players in here who offer a lot of value to a lot of teams going forward. And I think the Raiders did a good job of addressing a lot of those things. I like the Trey Zune pick. He's got to play guard. He's not going to play center. So now they have two guys who are going to play guard. Now they got their guard solidified. They still kind of need to figure out what the hell's going to happen at right tackle. But, they've filled a lot of needs. And, it's one of the benefits of being not a great team is you're able to go out and immediately look like you filled a lot of needs in the draft because almost anything you do is not going to be wrong.
You brought up Tualon. They got a 5th-round pick because they traded away Tyree Wilson, who was the first-round selection in, 2023?
Yes.
So we knew that he wasn't really panning out. Steven and I talked about it the year that he was drafted, his rookie year, and Steven thought he was a bust. And I was like, give it time on defensive players. The truth is, though, he never lived up to expectations. Drafted, 7th overall in 2023, and I liked him a lot. Large wingspan. I thought he was going to be a guy that goes against a lot of forced fumbles. Not the case. In 3 seasons with the Raiders, he had a total of 12 sacks and only 4 forced fumbles. So the biggest problem with this whole thing is they passed on Jalen Carter to get him. And other players in that draft class, actually, you go back and look, a lot of those names didn't pan out. But, yeah, Tyree Wilson, not what they anticipated. And playing an opposite of Max Crosby, he never benefited from that. So the New Orleans Saints offer a 5th-round pick, and that's rough to give up a former first-round talent for a 5th-round pick, but it is what it is. This regime's not really into him, and Rob Leonard knows him, but it's best to probably move on. The Saints were in need of pass rush help themselves. They were trying to get Kayvon Thibodeau and settled for, in my opinion, a lesser player at a lower value. So the Raiders move on. We know that they got Kwity Paye this offseason. I wonder how that was going to work with all of the rotations when it came to the pass rush. But now that Max Crosby comes back, it's easier to say goodbye to the former first-round pick that did not pan out in the end.
Yeah, Tyree Wilson did not pan out, and part of that probably has to do with the foot injuries that he had coming into the league, and it really stifled his development. But also, he has trouble getting off on the ball, and he was getting better. He was improving. His run defense is fine, but not the value that you want out of a number 7 overall draft pick in the first round in 2023. So, credit to the Raiders for cutting ties with him. Hope he goes on to a successful career in New Orleans. New Orleans does need pass rush. Kwity Paye, yeah, they brought him in. They drafted Crawford. I would assume Paye is going to play that more standard kind of, head up 5 technique kind of guy in this defense because of the way he plays against the run. And then a guy like Crawford will play on the true outside, trying to get after the passer. But yeah, the Tyree Wilson situation, that's not what you want. It's very similar in a lot of ways to the Cleveland Ferrell situation, where you draft a guy very high and then he doesn't pan out the way you want him to. The difference, though, is Tyree Wilson has the physical traits of it's incredible. It's just he's not been able to put them all together as we've seen. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. But it seems like this regime definitely they have a plan. And that's something after watching the Raiders operate for my entire life it doesn't seem like they've really had a plan the last 10 to 15-ish years, a solid plan. And yeah, maybe you can say they did have one with Gruden, but that blew up immediately. So, you can't even talk about what would have been. So it looks like they have a plan. About the Jalen Carter thing and Tyree Wilson, that situation is so tough because Henry Ruggs made it almost impossible for the Raiders to draft Jalen Carter. And I have to believe that's the only reason that pick went that way, because unfortunately they had to make a decision based on optics and the character of the franchise rather than what may have been better for them on the field. And that's because Jalen Carter had his own problems at Georgia right after the season. And we all know the Henry Ruggs situation. Also, Georgia guys should not be allowed to drive cars. I'll just say that.
Yeah. I'm with you on that, Alon. That's totally fair with the Henry Ruggs situation and the optics of then drafting a guy that got into a car accident and fled the scene when someone passed away. Yes, I totally understand that. But when the guy that you do select 7th overall does not pan out, it looks like a bad move.
Yep.
And in comparison to Cleveland Farrell, when he was drafted 4th overall in 2019, everybody thought that was a reach right away. Yeah. I think we're still working at 95.7. And I remember that at that draft party, we were like, "Ugh, that's a little too high for Cleveland Farrell." Tyree Wilson was drafted appropriately at 7th overall, but he's just the fact that he didn't pan out. So we'll see what happens. It would be a shame if he does develop into a good player. Not for him. I mean, that'd be great for him to continue his career, but for the Raiders' sake, it just kind of shows. It kind of reflects on the coaching staff that they weren't able to get the best out of him. If Brandon Staley is able to turn him into a pretty good pass rusher, then missed opportunity again for the Las Vegas Raiders. Let's move over to the 49ers draft class, Alon, where we did not have a pick in the first round for the Niners. They traded down twice in the first round, 27-30 with the Miami Dolphins for a 3rd-round pick. And then again, they trade down from 30-33 with the Jets for a 5th-round pick. We knew the situation with the Niners coming into the draft where they only had 6 picks total, a 1st, a 2nd, and 4 4s. So they wanted to get more draft picks. John Lynch made that pretty clear when he had his pre-draft press conference. And I got the sense that they didn't really love this draft class with how they felt, maybe with the way that some people thought they reached on some picks and the fact that they kept trading down. I just don't think that when it came to Kyle and John and all the scouts, they thought that the talent that other people thought was going to be good, they didn't think as highly of it. And there was one question from Grant Cohn in the press conference to John Lynch where he says, "Why do you guys deviate from the consensus?" And he's like, "Well, that's your consensus. Our consensus in this consensus in this building was high on these players." And that's, beauty in the eye of the beholder. Like, just because the mock drafts had this guy going there doesn't mean shit. I don't think teams really go with the consensus all the time. It's just a matter of who they like. That's why we saw crazy things in the first round. I think Cardinal Tate was going to go 4th overall. I didn't think Arvell Reese was going to drop to 5, but that's just how teams view the situation. So the 49ers looked at the first round and didn't like anybody there. Maybe there were certain guys, like I guess they were high on Malachi Lawrence, but once he was off the board from the Dallas Cowboys, then they moved on. So the one question I have for them is Omar Cooper Jr. was available at 30. Could you have taken him? I thought that he probably would have fit the scheme very well with the 49ers as a yards after the catch guy and a true slot guy that can, possibly replace Christian Kirk. We didn't even know about Christian Kirk as a player. He's, a guy that has proven himself in this league with the Cardinals and the Jaguars, but last year with the Texans, he barely played. Yeah. So I don't know. I thought that maybe they could have drafted him, but they didn't like him. Instead, they go with Dejon Stribling from Ole Miss in the 2nd round, first pick of the 2nd round, and he just fits the 49ers scheme so well. He's a good blocker. He's a mix of Juwan Jennings and Deebo Samuel, gets yards after the catch, a 3rd down go-to guy. The problem is, if you look at his college stats, not amazing. Never more than 55 receptions, less than 1,000 yards in all of his seasons, and only 6 touchdowns in a single season. That's his high mark. He bounced around. I forget which colleges he went to, but he went to Ole Miss a year ago. The question is, could they have gotten this guy at 58 as opposed to getting him at 33? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I really don't know like how other teams valued him, but that's where they picked him. And if he pans out, then who cares? But I understand the perception of the 49ers reaching on guys, but when a guy fits their scheme, I think Kyle has carte blanche when it comes to the draft, and John usually goes with him on it. And they went with a guy that can replace Jawan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk, and Deebo Samuel.
I think part of I like this pick, actually. I think it's a good pick. I understand that Omar Cooper Jr. probably would have fit the scheme just as well, but I like Stribling, bigger bodied receiver. I love the Deebo Samuel kind of Jawan Jennings, mixture there. He's like a Deebo Samuel who might be a better pure receiver, if that makes sense.
Because, yeah, totally.
Yeah, because Deebo was a great player. It's just not maybe the prototypical pure receiver, but Stribling definitely is. I will say this about, so he was at Washington State, then he was at Oklahoma State, and then he finished his career with Ole Miss. I will say this about him at Ole Miss this past year. He was their second leading receiver. I think a lot of that had to do with the scheme and the quarterback situation they had there at Ole Miss. Not that the scheme is bad. I just mean like that scheme Lane Kiffin gets everybody touches. I mean, if you look at their stats at the end of the season, I mean, you had multiple guys go for over 600 yards. 3 different receivers did that, and I have it right here. And then, Harrison Wallace, who was their best receiver, had nearly 1,000, and then Stribling right in there with 811. So, I mean, everyone was getting a piece of the pie in that system. So I think that is part of the situation there for him. But in terms of his kind of deeper stats, I mean, his yards per reception is really good. He's able to catch the ball near the end zone and make plays there. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the Niners to get him. And I think he has more upside than Omar Cooper Jr. does. So I actually think it's a really good pick. The thing I wonder with the Niners is and this probably wouldn't have happened, but it almost did, if the Patriots didn't take Caleb Lomu, the tackle from Utah. I wonder if the Niners would have went tackle with that pick. Like, for instance, if they would have stayed at 30, or let's just say he was on the board at 33 when they picked, if they would have went tackle, because I still feel like that's a position they need to address regardless of the Trent situation and the fact that they were able to redo the deal.
I agree with you, Alon, but they had their opportunities. They could have drafted, they definitely could have drafted Caleb Lomu at 27.
They could have.
Because then he went right at 28. I don't think they liked him. I don't think they liked Chase Basanis either. I thought that was going to be a pick right away on day 2, 33, where they need a guard. They don't have a starting left guard on this team.
No.
Now, it's clear that the media and fans think differently about the offensive line than Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch do. They just don't value the offensive line as far as getting top draft picks. They find replacements. They fell into the whole situation with Trent Williams. The Minnesota Vikings had a better deal on the table, and Trent refused to go to Minnesota. He wasn't going to sign a long-term extension, so he forced his way to the Niners, where Daniel Snyder hated that, but his hands were tied. He had to get rid of that player. I just think that the 49ers, no, they always wanted this guy, it seemed like. And, yeah, they liked other prospects, too, that went in the first round, but they were already gone. So it's clear they weren't high on Omar Cooper Jr. They weren't high on Chase Basanis. They went in different directions. And if those guys pan out to be good players, then this will bite them in the ass. But if this guy is Jawan Jennings and Deebo Samuel, then you won't think twice about it. However, we know how rookie wide receivers play their first year with the 49ers. They're in the doghouse usually. Deebo Samuel's the anomaly. He played and was a difference maker for them in 2019. Brandon Ayuk did not play right away. He was in the doghouse. I wonder what's going to happen with Stribling. This also puts a lot of pressure on Jordan Watkins and Jacob Cowing. Those guys need to perform this year. If they don't, then they'll probably be cut and won't make the team going into training camp. But yeah, the one question I have, Alon, is if you've seen a lot of Stribling, does he get separation? Because that's the thing in man-to-man coverage. That's the thing that Kyle Shanahan hated about Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk, where the Chiefs' corners in the Super Bowl were sticking to them so well and couldn't get open. That's why he drafted Ricky Pearsall. But if he's trying to find another Deebo Samuel or Jawan Jennings, I get that. That totally fits his style. but is it going to be the same situation where Stribling's not the best guy in man-to-man coverage?
I think he can create more separation than Debo ever did. But another thing, playing in that Lane Kiffin offense, like you're wide open a lot of the time. So there's times where there's not a guy like 2 to 3 yards near you, and he can definitely bust up zones and use his big body to catch the ball when he is in sticky coverage. But I mean, that is something that I will have to see when he gets to the NFL, is if he's able to create separation at that level. But it's not that he wasn't able to get it open in college. I mean, he was able to create separation. It's just the guy that system they play in at Ole Miss. I mean, it's almost like someone is always open. It seems like Lane Kiffin's just that damn good of a coach.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle's great for scheming it up for players when they're open in space. Debo, Juwan gets open. It's a different deal, but the biggest thing is that he blocks. As Kyle always says, no block, no rock. That's what he wants to see in his wide receivers. So this guy fits. I just wonder if it was kind of a reach as the first pick in the second round. For the other players they drafted in this 2026 draft class, the Niners took Romello Height in the third round, defensive end from Texas Tech. He played opposite David Bailey. He fits the Y9 scheme. He's got a good bend, just a slender frame. Any thoughts on Romello Height, Alon?
Yeah, great bender, designated pass rusher. Don't know what he's going to offer in terms of run defense. So they picked him with 70, right? Correct. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at some of the players who were picked at he was drafted as an outside linebacker. He's going to play as a, stand-up kind of rush end guy. I think it's a good pick. Maybe better value than the Stribling pick, but I don't know. The problem with him is going to be his run defense, just because of his frame. Like you said, slender build. He's a skinny guy, but I mean, the dude is lightning off the ball, and he showed it playing opposite of David Bailey. So I don't think it's a bad pick at all. I think it helps them, but I think this is another example of how, I don't know, what was the word I'm looking for, but how comfortable in their assessment of this draft the Niners were, that they didn't mind trading down. They didn't mind taking, whoever was there, because maybe they just didn't see the value. It's not like they view these as throwaway picks. They're just like, there isn't some guy who's just going to come in and change everything immediately. So let's just pick, who we think is the best. And I like that consensus answer, because the consensus on this draft could be all over the place when it's all said and done, because we don't know. This is a very unknown draft.
And we know the 49ers pass rush was terrible a year ago. So if you get more pure pass rushers, like this guy's kind of in the same vein as a Cassius Howell. Cassius Howell was a better pass rusher, but he's the same thing, where he's just a guy that goes upfield. He can make a few run plays here or there, but he's just a pure pass rusher. And they need that. They need that on third down. So, yeah, we'll see what impact he has. But if he fits the scheme, that's the thing. Like, the Niners draft guys that fit their scheme. They're not going to change things up for, anybody else. It's the guys that, for Kyle Shanahan, love Kyle, but he's arrogant in that way, where it's like, I'm drafting guys to play for me. Same thing with Raheem Morris. I want guys that fit my type of defense. So I don't blame them for that. Does it seem like a reach? Maybe to, the analysts. But then again, a lot of people love the Stribling pick. Dieter Kurtenbach and Greg Cosell, Dane Brugler, a lot of guys that follow the draft like this guy a lot. Just a question of, did they reach him? But if it fits the style of play, then who cares in the end? Okay, now this one, I say that, and then they draft in the third round Kalon Black, running back from Indiana. So is he even the main running back for the Hoosiers?
I mean, it's him and Hemby, but this pick is mind-boggling. Not because it's a running back, not because of that. It's because of the fact it was this running back.
Before Mike Washington Jr. with the Raiders.
Yeah, before Washington. I mean, it's just totally weird. I don't understand it. And I get that they want a running back to complement Christian McCaffrey, and they need a guy who's powerful, which Black is. Keelan is definitely, but I don't know about this pick. This one's a little bit of a head scratcher. Now, could totally be wrong, and it's gonna pan out great. I mean, this is the thing about Kyle Shanahan and his offense and the way he runs that team. it's almost to the point where you could plug anybody in at running back and they're going to look good. So I think Black will look good. It's just, I think there's more talented and more physically talented players than him that were there.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, he didn't acknowledge this, but he was asked about their past failures drafting running backs. They got Jordan James, who didn't make an impact a year ago from Oregon. Jermichael Hasty, I want to say was drafted, maybe not. But the other guy, who's my dude that was with the LSU Tigers. What was his name? Tre'Davious Price or something like that.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They've always, and there was another guy that ended up with the Philadelphia Eagles. I forget all their failures. I'll look it up in a little bit here, but they have failed at drafting running back. And Kyle every year loves drafting running backs. He loves running the football. But yeah, I heard this one was kind of a reach. I'll say this: the top 3 guys they drafted, in Stribling, Height, and Black, all guys had playoff experience, going far in the postseason with the CFP. Not so much Texas Tech, but just guys that played at a high level with teams that did well a season ago. So there's that. But at the same time, I think Kyle likes a certain style of running back. And I think this guy kind of reminds me a little bit of Brian Robinson and Kalen Black. He gets what's blocked. He could be a red zone threat for them. He's got a little shift to him, but people say there were other running backs available. My guy Pat H in the chat. What up, Pat H? Or should I say Pat Haran? I believe that's your last name, and I just outed you out to everybody now. He says in the chat here, Niners reach like Stretch Armstrong. You got Ty Davis Price, Trey Sermon. That was the guy. Joe Williams, all of the failures at running back. So I'm just curious because there's a couple guys in the chat now. We got Ernie 1. We got Pat H. And I know, Ernie, Pat H got a shout out before me. I know, dude, but you're putting in the chat here. Derek,
come on.
Derek blows up plays like Derek blows up toilets. See, I'm acknowledging your text now, but I'm curious what you guys think about the 49ers draft, if you think anything. I think some people believe today that they got good players, but maybe reach for them. But then again, Kyle's always going to get the guys that he wants, and I don't think he really cares where they're selected. So we got that. We got Kalen Black. They also got in the 4th round Grayson Halton, the defensive tackle from Oklahoma. Plays in different schemes, but didn't play a lot a year ago. They finally draft an offensive lineman in the 4th round, Carver Willis, an offensive tackle from Washington. Played right tackle at Kansas State, but did not play well. Played well a year ago at left tackle for Washington. But can he play guard? That's going to be the biggest question mark. Are they drafting guys as more swing tackles or guys that could be backups? Do they like Connor Colby? Or can this guy actually play left guard for them this upcoming season? Then also in the 4th round, they got, and bear with me here, Ephesians Prysock, cornerback from Washington. Apparently he's long-lived, but needs to work on his overall coverage ability. And then the last 2 picks were in the 5th round. Jaden Duggar, linebacker from Louisiana, good size and athleticism, but again, maybe another reach here. Dane Brugler says he could be a good practice squad player. You want to hear that from your 5th round pick. And then lastly, in the 5th round, Enrique Cruz, offensive tackle from Kansas. He's very good in the running zone scheme. But what will his role be when it's all said and done with the offensive line? They really didn't prioritize it in this draft class. Again, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch think differently than we do when it comes to their offensive line. But your thoughts, Alon, on what they did this year?
I like the Willis pick. I think that's interesting. I think he's an immediate depth piece. He probably will get some time this season, just if we go through the, short lineage here over this Shanahan regime of just guys getting injured. So he probably will have to see some type of time. And I think he is definitely kind of that swing lineman kind of prospect. The Ephesians pick, I like that as well, but I mean, also kind of a project pick, even though he's a 4th rounder. I don't really have an opinion on Enrique Cruz from Kansas. Didn't watch a lot of Kansas football this year. I mean, I read the reports on him, and same with Jaden Duggar. I didn't watch a lot of Louisiana. football either. But going back to the running back position, I was like, who would I have taken there? I probably would have taken a guy in that same conference. I would have taken Katron Allen from Penn State, because that guy can run the rock, and I think he's a more talented player than Keelan Black is. So I don't know. Look, the Niners, they're probably going to get, like, Kyle Madsen had a write up on this at Niners Wire, and that's actually it's a good little article to read, because it gives you kind of an overview. They graded it out. We're not really doing draft grades here. I get it, but the Niners draft who they think is going to be good for their system, and use the word kind of like a little bit of arrogance. It is a little bit of arrogance on the side of that coaching staff and that front office, but it's also confidence in the fact that they know they can get things done with guys generally that others might not have ranked as high. And that's not always a bad thing. It's just, it can blow up in your face sometimes, as Pat H earlier, had all these guys, Trey Sermon, Joe Williams, yada, yada, yada. So, and I also see, fire Lynch in here. No, I mean, not that, but
I think Pat H is being funny there. I don't think
I think he is being funny too, but I think they did fine in the draft. I think there's a lot of players here who can help them, but on other teams, I don't know what these guys would look like. But I do have supreme confidence in Kyle Shanahan and the way he coaches, that I think, like, you know what? Even though I don't like the Keelan Black pick, I don't think he's going to be a bust for them. Even though some people might not think that Stribling was the best receiver to take there, and maybe they should have, not traded down and gotten an Omar Cooper Jr. or guys like that, or even a Denzel Boston who was available, who would be a little redundant with Mike Evans on the team, even though Mike Evans is not a long-term solution. I still think it's a good pick. So I think they did fine. It's just they didn't. Who was the reporter that said, why don't you guys go by the consensus?
Grant Cohn.
It was Grant Cohn. So, yeah, it's a good question by Grant Cohn, but I love the answer from the Niners. That's not our consensus. That's your consensus. We're going to draft the guys that we want. So they have a plan, and I think that's the most important thing. The Niners always have a plan under John Lynch, and they execute that plan. Whether it's what the fans want, whether what it's the media thinks, doesn't matter to them. It's what they think plugs and plays into their scheme. So I don't know. I think they did a good job. We'll have to see how all these guys play. I think the first 3 picks they made are all going to be contributors.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's a thing. But I know that Kyle in the past always deviates from what the popular consensus has. Like, no one had Ricky Pearsall as a first-round pick a couple of years ago. But, again, Ricky Pearsall has some injury concerns right now. But when he plays, he has been pretty effective. The same thing, I'm trying to think of another first-round pick they had that many people didn't consider them taking. But or like even last year, like Upton Stout. He was a 5th-round pick. No one knew a lot about him, but he was probably their best defensive rookie this past year. Great in coverage. And then Alfred Collins, I thought was going to be an impact player for them. He was at times, but it was C.J. West in later rounds that was a better player. So you never know. I don't know what this draft class is going to be. As everybody in the chat here says, Ernie won. It was meh, nothing solid, but it's the draft. We know nothing. Absolutely. And then Pat H here says they need to draft a center too, but they're attached to Brendel. Yeah, they like their guys. They like the guys that they have on the offensive line. So just because I think in this draft particular, I think that there was guys that were valued high that most teams were not thinking the same thing. Like Emmanuel Pregnon, people thought that maybe he would have been a first-round pick when it came to guard. Not the case. He went later on in the 3rd round. So it's always different. It's different than what the media and what the scouts feel, and what, in the end, these are decisions made by coaches, really. Like, yes, some GMs have full autonomy, like, Howie Roseman and John Schneider. Those guys get the final say. Kyle Shanahan's dictating this draft. So it could be where Kyle's getting all the information from his scouts, but he's like, guys, I know my scheme better than anybody else. I'm taking who I want. And it's been mixed results with Kyle Shanahan, no doubt. John Gruden was not good with that information. I'm sure Mike Mayock had better information and better, better, I guess, decisions in the end, or better ideas of who could make the football team, improve. But in the end, John Gruden was like, nah, I like this guy, and I'm going with him. I don't care if Alex Leatherwood is considered to be a 4th-round pick or a 5th-round pick. I'm taking him in the 1st round, and that was a dumb move. Al Davis did this for years. Al Davis took Darius Hayward-Bay, and God, to this day, I'm still upset about that, when you had Michael Crabtree on the board. But he liked him. Just some people are arrogant in that way, and Kyle Shanahan has that ability to do that. So we'll see what happens. I'm not going to say any of these guys are bad. I think that, yes, some talent evaluators might say that it was a reach for them to take some of these guys. But if they play and they keep winning, and they always have, then who gives a shit?
Yeah. No, that's how I feel about it. So even though, for instance, you brought up the Ricky Pearsall thing, I will always bag on that regime for taking him. Not because I think Ricky Pearsall is a bad player, and I've said it a billion times. It's because Ladd McConkey was still available, and Ladd McConkey's just better. It's just is what it is.
You think so far from what you've seen from the two guys, you think Ladd McConkey's a better receiver than Ricky
I thought
Pearsall?
he was better in college, and he's obviously been better in the NFL. And that's because of availability. So, I mean, you can't knock Pearsall for that. But yeah, like the Niners keep winning. They win 10 to 12 games every year, like guaranteed, basically. So can we really say it's not working? No, you can't say that. So these guys do see the field. Just do all of them pan out? No, but that's every team. I would say the Niners have better success. Well, not I would say they do have better success than a lot of other teams in the league. They're a top 10 team in the league when it comes to running their organization and winning and being consistent. So yeah, even if, the media goes, oh, F grade on Kalen Black, and maybe I don't think it's the greatest pick in the world and that there were better running backs out there, it doesn't matter because Kyle Shanahan figures out a way to get this team to win. The only concern I have with their draft, Eric, is I think they need real depth players who can come in when the injuries do happen. I hate that I have to bake that in now for the Niners, but it just seems like the injuries are going to happen. It's inevitable with this team for whatever reason. And it's not because of the freaking power plan or anything like that. It's just they get injured. It might be the physical way they practice, could be all these things. So I'm very concerned about the guys that they drafted round 4 and beyond. Are those guys going to be able to be real depth pieces for them? Real guys who can come in and play meaningful snaps when they need to.
Pat H in the chat says Kyle's personnel powers need to be limited and they need to bring in a real GM that can actually draft. I don't know if you could say that about John Lynch, that he can't draft. I'll be honest, I like John Lynch. He's made good moves over the years, but draft-wise, it's been hit or miss. They've hit on the guys that are going to be studs at the next level. Nick Bosa. The Solomon Thomas move was not great. And in the end, I don't really know how much say John Lynch has. I think that in 2021, when they drafted Trey Lance, that was when the organization stepped in and told Kyle, this is what we need to do. Like, yes, you have the final say and everything, but it would be better with us trading up from 12 to 3 to go get this guy that has more potential than what we see in Mac Jones. Now, today, probably would have been better to get Mac Jones than Trey Lance. So maybe Kyle was right about that one. But I don't know. I don't know if John Lynch. I think he must be a good judge of talent for being a Hall of Fame player. But is he? And this is the case with most GMs. Is he evaluating the same way that his scouts are? No, I don't think that he's grinding tape like those guys. And who's to say? But I think with this situation that he's in, Kyle gets final say. I don't know if he has like a different structure where I'm sure Mike Mayock was giving great ideas to John Gruden. Maybe not great ideas, but better ideas than what Gruden was coming up with as far as who they should draft. I think in the end, just John goes with Kyle because he's earned that right. Not being, a Super Bowl winning coach by any means, but being a great coach in this league. So, yeah, I understand fans' frustrations with that, but as long as they're winning, they got past everything. They got past the Trey Lance situation. They found a diamond in the rough in Brock Purdy. And you probably give credit to Kyle for that one. So I know tomorrow probably we'll get mixed reactions to this draft class. But as Ernie One says in the chat, no one knows. So we'll see when we get to training camp who actually is panning out for this football team. And most likely with the way things go with the 49ers and their rookies, maybe these guys don't have an impact on the team. Who knows? Stribling. You think that he fits the scheme, but it may be where it's a learning curve for him. They need more running depth And I'm sure that with Keon Black drafted, they're probably going to move off of Isaac Orendo. I don't think he's going to be on this team. He was in the doghouse a year ago too. You want to see Jordan James finally play as well. But I would say they drafted everything they needed. Did they get a tight end? No, but they feel good about Jake Tonjes and Luke Farrell. So yeah, they got a wide receiver, they got a lineman, they got a pass rusher, they got a corner, all of which they needed. Could they have drafted their replacement for Trent Williams? Sure. Could they have drafted a real starting guard? Absolutely. But the 49ers do things differently. So all I can say is right now, we'll see. But if it turns out that these guys are not going to be impact players, then we can come back and criticize them. But for today and draft grades, I'm not doing all that. No.
Yeah, I mean, they drafted mostly what they needed. I see Pat H, center and pass rush. No, I get it. And they did try to address the pass rush for sure. And they
with
were able
Romello Hyde, yeah.
Yeah, and they were able, and a guy who just does pass rush. So like that need is addressed. I almost wonder if they would have taken, because I think the two picks before the Raiders got Crawford from Auburn. I almost wonder if that was a player that they would have taken, because I think he would have fit that same role just with a slightly bigger body. But tight end would have been interesting. I thought one of the tight ends who would have been really fun for them to get would have been Josh Cuevas, who I thought was a pretty productive tight end at times at Alabama. But yeah, I don't think Cuevas ended up getting drafted. I don't believe so. I think he got signed undrafted like a lot of Alabama guys did. But no, he did get drafted 5th round by Baltimore. But they addressed their needs. I don't really care what the media says regarding what their grade is. It's all about what the production on the field is. Regarding Kyle Shanahan, the questions about, who makes the draft decisions. Look, the scout, the GM synthesizes all that information and then confers with the head coach about what they want to do. The scout players that fit the head coach's system. I know that head coaches don't always have the best track record when it comes to personnel decisions, but it is very hard to convince me that anybody knows better than the head coach, once he has the information, who is going to fit his scheme or his team better than he does. So that is why head coaches have that power, for better or for worse. It's because they're running the darn team, and Kyle Shanahan has earned the right to run the team the way he wants to and to get the kind of players that he wants. So yeah, is he scouting? Is John Lynch, grinding the tape like the way the scouts are? No, but there are directives in place for those scouts to find those types of players that fit Kyle's system. That goes to Lynch, and then Lynch and Shanahan make a decision on that. And Shanahan probably has the ultimate say, and that's not a bad thing. It's worked out pretty well for you Niner fans. It really has. Just has come up short in terms of a Super Bowl. But it's not like you haven't been competitive. It's not like you haven't been there. You just haven't been able to seal the deal. And to me, that is not something you can pin on these draft decisions. It's just not. Maybe you could pin it on the fact that guys couldn't get open against the Chiefs. Okay, whatever. But that is not a draft issue. That's maybe another issue entirely. Maybe that's scheme, maybe that's the way they're coached, but I don't think that's a talent issue. I think this team has been good at getting talent.
They have been. And it's clear that they've established a culture in winning ways, but they could be better in the draft. I do acknowledge that. And is it where Kyle has too much say in personnel? Probably, but that's the structure of this setup. So unless Kyle gets fired, I don't think it's changing. There's a reason why he handpicked John Lynch to be his GM, because he knew John Lynch was going to do what he tells him to do. And that's the way that things are run in certain organizations. Should it be where every head coach has final say when it comes to a draft pick? No, it should be a collaborative effort, but that's just the way things are with Kyle. So Kyle's a great coach. Is he a great talent evaluator? In some regards, yes, but I don't know. Yes, I acknowledge that their drafts have not been the best, and it's been hit or miss, but can he complain that much when the team keeps winning? I don't think so. At the same time, could they have drafted better? It puts them over the top when it comes to the Seahawks and the Rams and actually win a Super Bowl? Yes, I acknowledge that. So today on April 26th, I'm not going to say that the Niners had a bad draft. We'll come back to this in training camp and preseason as the season goes on, and then we'll evaluate if actually they made some bad moves. And then they also made a move to acquire another 5th-round pick. They traded away D. Winters, their linebacker, And D. Winters had a solid season a year ago. Obviously, the defense was ravaged with injuries, but he stepped up. He had a pick six in that Monday night game against the Indianapolis Colts. Was he great in pass coverage? Not really. Tatum Bethune, also not great in pass coverage, just guys that were filling in for the injuries of Fred Warner and, the departure of Dre Greenlaw. And now he's back. They're waiting on, Nick Martin didn't play at all, it felt like, that rookie season, and now they could probably get him into the fold a little bit. So they move on from D. Winters. The Cowboys were in desperate need of linebacker help going to the 3-4 scheme. And the truth is also D. Winters, his contract was going to be up after this season, and they just don't want to pay him. So when you have more linebacker depth, it's an easy move to make, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it is an easy move to make. So I don't think it bothered them in the slightest. So I thought they did a really good job with all that. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see, Derek. The draft, it's so much fun, but it's such a crapshoot. So you see these trades get made, you see players get picked. You don't know if they're ever going to play outside of some of the first round guys who are almost guaranteed to always play. So yeah, I mean, I don't have any problems with it. I really don't have any problems with what the Niners did. I would tell everybody in the chat, everybody who's watching, take that media grade that's right next to their name and just throw it in the trash. Just do that and just wait for them to play.
Fair enough. As far as storylines that came from the draft in general, the first surprise to me, and this wasn't really a surprise because this was widely reported by a lot of insiders, but Jeremiah Love at 3 is a little insane to me. And I know he's a great player. We talked about him being an all-time running back prospect, but for the Arizona Cardinals that have a ton of needs, really in the trenches when it comes to their offensive line and defensive line help, if it can't trade out of the pick, then why not get I can't speak today. Jesus Christ, I can't talk. A guy that you can move around in Arvell Reese.
Yeah.
That can play on the outside, inside. He can play linebacker or the edge. I thought that could have been a great move for them at 3, but getting Jeremiah Love, they already have a crowded running back room. They got Tyler Algier, who they picked up this offseason, and James Conner, who they brought back. And I think now Conner's probably going to get probably cut or traded in training camp because there's too much there. So yeah, I thought that it was a little much for the Arizona Cardinals to draft Jeremiah Love there. I just think that they have so many other needs. I know that Mike LaFleur is an offensive player. I probably would argue that while Kyle Shanahan has carte blanche to do whatever he wants in the draft, this feels to me like a owner move where Michael Bidwell knew that he needed to sell some tickets. So in the end, they go with a guy that can generate a lot of asses in the seats with Jeremiah Love.
That's tough because if it is that there, I hate that, dude. I hate when it's an owner move and when it's for that reason of putting people in the stadium. If it's that, then I hope he's a generational player for them. But that team is so bereft of talent and the situation is not good there. And I know that they were able to make some decent picks after that. I mean, Jeremiah Love's not a bad pick. It's just that team needs so much help. They need offensive line. They need defensive line. Like they can't even win in the trenches. So how is Jeremiah Love going to be successful? That's what I don't understand. Now, if it's not an owner's pick, then that means the coaching staff and the GM there and LaFleur, they think that he is going to be a generational type player that's going to be there for 10 years and really make things go. But it's still tough. It's still so tough because I can see him having the same problems that Ashton Genty just had this past season with the Raiders, where it won't be that bad because no offensive line will be as bad as the Raiders offensive line was last year. I'll say that. I don't think there'll be a team in the league that has an offensive line that bad, but it's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy sledding. It's not going to be easy for Jeremiah Love. I don't think so. Also, does Jeremiah Love put asses in the seats? He's not a quarterback. I mean,
yeah,
he's not Carson Beck. No.
Yeah, but he's a explosive player, so I get that. And just to get this right, finally, developmental. Jesus Christ, that word gave me some trouble earlier. But yeah, I thought that maybe they could go with a project player, a guy that can help them in the long run, a developmental guy, in Arvell Reese. And trading down was difficult, I guess, in this draft class. I get it. People didn't want to come up and give up a lot of capital for upcoming draft classes. But yeah, Jeremiah Love, yes, he's a better prospect than Ashton Genty. But as we know, if you don't have the offensive line to block for this type of player, then he's not going to have a lot of success. So, all in all, like I did like the Arizona Cardinals draft by getting this guy and Chase Bissanis in the second round. Then they get Carson Beck in the third round, so not bad. But those are guys we know. Who's to say they're actually going to pan out in the end? So yeah, I thought that was a bad move by the Arizona Cardinals. I did not anticipate Cardinal Tate going at 4 when Arvell Reese was still on the board. I thought that, with Robert Saleh and him, wanting to improve that defense, you get a developmental player in Arvell Reese where you could put him at anywhere, inside, outside, at pass rusher, as an inside linebacker. But they go with offense to get Carnell Tate, who I thought was the best wide receiver in this draft class. But that's a little too high for me, a little too rich for my blood. I know that Cam Ward needs more weapons, and they got Wan'Dale Robinson in the slot for him. But I don't know. I don't know if I love that move for them, just based on the talent that was available. I thought they could have got a pretty solid wide receiver at the end of the first round or early in the second round. They didn't have to get Carnell Tate right there.
No, they didn't, but I respect what they did, because I think that signals that they think their defense is going to be much improved with Saleh, but Arvell Reese is so much more the tempting prospect than Carnell Tate is. It's just a fact. I was also wondering during the draft if Jeremiah Love was there, if the Tennessee Titans would have taken him, and I think they would have. Because I wasn't anticipating Arizona taking him, and I could definitely see him fitting with the Titans and how they want to play football. But Cam Ward, they've invested a lot in that position. That could be kind of ownership pressure there too. Derek was saying, "Hey, we got a first-round quarterback who we think is very talented. We need to give him help," and that's probably what that Carnell Tate pick is. Even if Arvell Reese gets picked right after to the New York Giants, and man, Arvell Reese is. That is very tempting to pick that guy. And regardless of what his comments are, regardless of what his high school GPA was, I don't care. The guy is amazing. Did you ever see any of those stories about his high school GPA?
I did not. I know that some comments were made after in his press conference where, he may not have said the most enlightening things, and it was quick. Are people suggesting he's just not a smart player or a smart person? Or
I don't really know, but I thought I saw this video. He had a really funny quip. There was a reporter who said, how did you turn it around? You had a 1.0 in high school for a semester, and then you got to Ohio State and you have like a 3.7. It's because he works extremely hard in the classroom. That is why. You can, people are gonna be like, oh, you have tutors and stuff who do everything for you. No, schools like Ohio State, you have to do well. You have to go to school. He said, I didn't have a 1.0, I had a 0.4, and everybody laughed at that. It's a turnaround story of the century. But Arvell Reese is right there. I don't know why Tennessee doesn't take him, Derek. That was surprising to me. Those two back-to-back picks, very surprising that they went that high. Jeremiah Love and Carnell Tate. And Carnell Tate is the best receiver.
Well, we know that Robert Saleh can orchestrate a defense. It doesn't have to be the best talent there. And in the end, they get Keldrick Falk, who, can either play at end or inside a defensive tackle. So they still get a rush in there, or I should say just pass rush in general. But, a little surprising to me. That might be where the owner and the GM are kind of telling Robert Saleh, this is what we need to emphasize here. I'm sure he would have loved Sonny Styles as well, but they go with Carnell Tate to help that offense out. And the offense did struggle a ton a year ago, but Brian Daboll's there now to help out with Cam Ward. So then with Arvell Reese not going at 4, he goes to the Giants at 5, and that gives them a middle linebacker, which they needed, immensely. They don't have one currently, and they have a ton of hybrid, developmental players in Abdul Carter and Arvell Reese, guys that could play in the middle or on the outside, versatile. And Brian Burns led the league in sacks a year ago. So now is Kayvon Thibodeau on the outside looking in? They could rotate now. I think that's a really good move for the Giants. Where maybe I thought they would go all the offense, where Jeremiah Love fell to them at 5, then you get Jordan Tyson at 10. But John Harbaugh sticks in his ways of what he wants. He's another coach that gets final say over Joe Shane. That was pretty apparent in their press conferences. But yeah, Arvell Reese, I think, is going to make them better defensively. And now that NASCAR package that they could have on third down will be just scary as hell. Where, as I've said, you could put Arvell Reese or Abdul Carter inside and have Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns on the outside. So just like it was 20 years ago when the Giants won the Super Bowl with Justin Tuck and Michael Strahan and O.C. Umenyiora, Matthias Kiwanuka, they got some pass rushers now. The Chiefs trade up to get the best corner on the table, Mansour Delane. I was kind of surprised. I thought that Reuben Bain would be available for them, or he was, but they just passed on him, and he falls to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 14. And the Buccaneers needed pass rush help desperately, so that's a good pickup for them. He stays in Florida. But, yeah, Chiefs getting the best corner in the draft. Mansour Delane's, awesome in coverage. They move off of Trent McDuffie and Jalen Watson. So not bad to get some cornerback help there.
No, great pick. I love what the Chiefs did. I love the aggression that they showed being able to get Mansour Delane. I love that they were able to double up in the back end of the draft as well, or the back end of the first round. I'm glad they went both defense. I think that shows you their mentality. They know that Patrick Mahomes can make everybody better as kind of that point guard of the offense, because he can. Will he need offensive help eventually? Yes, but maybe that help wasn't there in this draft for them, or that they valued it as highly in this draft. So Mansour Delane is awesome. It shows their mentality of cornerbacks help us win Super Bowls. I mean, think about that against the Niners. What helped them win the Super Bowl? It's the fact that their corners were able to cover so well. So I think, and they just saw the Seattle Seahawks do really well because of how good their corner room was. So I thought that was a really good pick. And there's some people questioning it. Why trade up for him? And I'm like, that's a good pick, man. You're getting the best corner in a draft that there aren't too many surefire guys. And if there is one, he's probably one of them. And then their pick at the end of the first round too with Peter Woods is awesome as well, because they're already planning for the future in a Chris Jones, Chris Jones defense that they will have eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that maybe we would go pass rusher there. We kept talking about their lack of physicality in the trenches. I think they need more help on offensive line. I don't know if Jalen Moore is a true starter for them, but they picked him up free agency last year from the Niners. And then, as far as pass rush, they got George Karlaftis, and I don't know who else they got at that defensive line. So the Chiefs will figure it out. They always do, but I was a little surprised they didn't go with Reuben Bain, but they did need cornerback help. And then probably the biggest surprise of the draft in the first round was the Rams getting Ty Simpson. And there was rumors about this if they had still 29, but they traded that away to the Rams for Trent McDuffie. And going into the draft, we kept hearing how the Rams love Ty Simpson if he was there at 29. And they traded out of that pick. So I think that was, not going to be a thing anymore. I think that the Arizona Cardinals were probably the most inclined to get him. But when he gets drafted at 13, you're thinking, wow, the Rams do that, huh? Considering, they're Super Bowl contender, they probably have maybe the best roster in all of football. They could use some help at wide receiver, maybe get Mekhi Lemon, maybe get Omar Cooper Jr., a true slot guy to play with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. They also need offensive line help, but no, the Rams see this as this is the only opportunity we're going to be with a top 15 pick like this, and we know that Matthew Stafford's going to retire eventually. And they're working out a contract extension where he might play for the next few years here, but they decided to go with Ty Simpson. And I don't hate the pick at all. I think it's just surprising because I just anticipated. I thought that we would see Ty Simpson later on in the draft at the end of the first round or early second, but it just shows you how high the Rams were on this guy. And you see the skill set there. We talked about the difference in talent from Fernando Mendoza to Ty Simpson. Again, you and I are in agreement that Ty Simpson makes more NFL throws. Slender frame, but it's another good situation where Fernando Mendoza's in a great situation, learning from Kirk Cousins. Ty Simpson's in a fantastic situation, learning from not only a great mastermind in Sean McVay, but a great quarterback in Matthew Stafford. So who knows when he'll play? I just think that, honestly, the Rams are thinking about the long-term future, and they could get, other talent in the short-term success, but they want this team to be successful 20 years down the line. So while a lot of people had a problem with it, kind of like with the Packers drafting Jordan Love when Aaron Rodgers came off an MVP season, it might piss off your quarterback for a little bit of time, but I get it. I understand why they did it.
It shouldn't piss off Matt Stafford, and it shouldn't piss off Sean McVay either. But this is, you mentioned it, 20 years, thinking 20 years ahead. This is the all-out strategic move. This is not, tactics in the moment. You're thinking, how do I get better right now, immediately? What the Rams are hoping this move does is it delays or even gets rid of a tank entirely, because they do not anticipate picking in the top 15 anytime soon. Right. With Matthew Stafford as the quarterback for the next 2 to 3 years, probably at least. And then Sean McVay seems like he's going to stay there for as long as he wants to. So they have basically taken any chances of them having to tank for a quarterback after Stafford leaves, and they've thrown that away. They've also thrown away the risk of, well, we'll take a quarterback in the second or third round and then make him our starter. Something that the Steelers kind of have done here and there with guys like Mason Rudolph. Well, they had the stability with Roethlisberger, but then look what they had to do. They had to basically not have an okay season, because they've always had okay seasons with Mike Tomlin. Mm-hmm. And then they drafted Kenny Pickett, who didn't work out. So I like what the Rams were able to do here. They're basically saying, we never want to be in the situation where we tank. So what we're going to do is draft our quarterback now, and then hopefully he pans out, and then that makes us have sustained success for the long term. Very similar to what the Packers have done in the past with Aaron Rodgers, from Brett Favre, from Jordan Love, from Aaron Rodgers, that kind of situation. I think it's really strategic thinking, high level stuff. Good on the Rams. It is. I will say this: it is a reach, according to the media, a lot of media people. But I was happy for Dan Orlovsky, because Dan Orlovsky was vindicated, and they made fun of him on the Pat McAfee show at the draft. And then the name got called, and Dan was like walking around giving everybody high fives. And I was like, yeah, good. See, Dan Orlovsky knew something.
He definitely knew something because of the whole connection with CAA, but whatever. I don't think that his evaluation was off by any means.
No.
Now, Sean McVay looked visibly upset in the post-draft press conference. And we don't need to play the audio because the audio doesn't do it justice. He just gives kind of curt, brief answers. He was asked about Matthew Stafford and telling him about the draft pick ahead of time. And he said, yeah, we talked about it. And they wanted to know what he said to him. And he said, I'll keep that between us. Yeah, we can play it real quick. Here we go. Here's Sean McVay after Ty Simpson is drafted in the 13th overall in the first round of the draft.
Yeah, I did. I'll keep that between us. We'll see. He's going to compete with Stetson.
Wow, he looks so happy.
Yeah, he did. I will admit, when I first saw this, I was like, he looks pissed. And that led to some people thinking that, was this a Les Snead move where he just did this on his own without the blessing of Sean McVay? And I found that hard to believe. Because Sean McVay, when it comes to the future of this organization, and especially a quarterback, they have to be in lockstep together. They have to be on the same page that they're going to draft Ty Simpson. I know that some people were suggesting that Les Snead knows Ty Simpson's dad, so that's why he drafted him. And there was some stuff with, at the owners' meetings, Sean McVay saying he didn't do a lot of work on Ty Simpson. Bullcrap. Sean McVay is a workaholic. So I didn't buy that. I know that with the internet age, we all just react to what everyone believes. I didn't think Sean McVay was pissed off about that. I think that, as he said, he was grumpy for other reasons. But the truth is, Jeremy Fowler put out the next day, he was just trying to be cognizant of Matthew Stafford's feelings. Because this this is a delicate situation. Whenever you draft the heir apparent to an aging quarterback, that quarterback who's done a lot for you, win Super Bowls, win MVPs, probably going to be pissed. So you don't want to make it seem like you're jumping for joy and exuberant that you drafted the next guy when the old guy's still there. So I understand what Sean McVay's doing. I totally get it. Yes, in years past, he's grinning ear to ear when it comes to other prospects. He just wants to be mindful of Matthew Stafford's feelings. So to anyone thinking that Sean McVay was blindsided by the drafting of Ty Simpson, that's totally off.
Yeah, I mean, look how happy he is right there. Look at that. That's like a Mickey Mouse smile. I mean, he's picture day at school. He looks ecstatic. So, I mean, yeah, no, I think a lot of that is Sean McVay. He's got his own coach's personality, Derek. And sometimes I think he's a little coy about things, but generally we're used to him being pretty open. But yeah, he does want to be mindful of his future first ballot Hall of Famer quarterback who's won them a Super Bowl and had an amazing season last season and got them pretty damn close to going to Super Bowl again. I think he doesn't want to step on any toes there. Why fracture a good relationship? So he's doing what he needs to do. It was a fascinating pick. I was happy for Ty Simpson, obviously, but also I respect the Rams for what they did. Because otherwise they're waiting until the second or third round to get like a Carson Beck kind of guy. And to me, that's a wasted pick for them.
I get that. I also, if you go through this season and they don't win the Super Bowl and it's because they didn't get a game changer at, wide receiver, a wide receiver 3, Jordan Whittington's their third wide receiver right now. He didn't get a ton of receptions a year ago. They have a lot of tight ends. They could get better offensive line play, but if they don't end up winning the Super Bowl, you can pinpoint it to maybe they should have addressed their needs at 13. But then again, the same thing with Kyle Shanahan. Sean McVay doesn't let rookies play. So maybe they're just thinking like, let's just get the best possible guy that's not going to play for us. And in the end, that's Ty Simpson. Other moves that were noteworthy, Mekhi Lemon goes to the Eagles, and I think that just pretty much solidifies the fact that A.J. Brown will be traded post-June 1st. But then Mekhi is on the phone with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Steelers wanted to draft him. Omar Khan, their GM, is on the phone with them and with him. And he's talking to him, and then he sees that Philadelphia is on the clock, and then his agent comes out of nowhere and says, no. Philadelphia traded for you. So they hang up on the Steelers, and then he goes to Philly. It's a bad look for the Steelers, no doubt that they're not aware of that. So I think that kind of shows what's going on with that organization. But I think Philadelphia is loading up on wide receivers, a particular type of wide receiver, guys that are kind of slim and speedy, not so much in Mekhi Lemon's situation, but kind of like the Miami blueprint of having like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, not big body guys, but guys that could get separation and guys that are shifty. So, yeah, I think it's a good move for the Eagles. I wasn't really high on Mekhi Lemon, but it seems that Sean Mannion knows what he wants in this type of scheme. So it's the Eagles gain and it's the Steelers loss that he goes to Philadelphia.
I love the pick for Philadelphia, and it completely signals what they're trying to do with their wide receiver room and what's happening there. So I hope he's happy catching balls from Jalen Hurts. But Mekhi Lemon, I know you weren't too high on him, Derek, and I know he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he does play very physical. He plays bigger than what he is. He's got, vice grips for hands. He seems to catch everything. He makes good catches. I think it's a good pick for them. I saw the clip of that. I was watching, but then I saw the clip that came up on Twitter after X where he's on the phone and he goes, wait, what's Philly calling for? And then
exactly.
They're like, you've been traded. I don't understand how exactly that happens on the Steelers end of how are you on the phone with someone and then there's a trade that's executed involving you and then you don't.
Well, no, it was involving the Cowboys.
Well, correct. But how do you not get word of, I guess maybe that's just not communicated. That's just between
it's a bad look all the way around.
Do the Eagles not, I don't know. Do the Eagles not tell everybody who's also in that same spot? Hey, we're after.
No,
what I'm saying is the trade's executed. Doesn't notice go out to everybody around the NFL in that moment?
You would think so, but I guess the Steelers just weren't aware of that. I don't know. I don't know what they've said since then. I don't know if Omar Khan or Mike McCarthy have talked about how that happened, but that's pretty bad. I'm not going to lie. That's a pretty bad moment for them.
Yeah, because in my mind, the trade gets executed, right? And then immediately, like in all these war rooms, there's the ticker going off where it's probably information from the league. And then it probably says trade, process, team A, team B, this is the case. And then immediately Pittsburgh's like, oh, see you later, Mackay. Like, sorry, we're not going to draft you. I don't know. To me, that was a little interesting. I always thought in my mind, like when something like that happens, the entire league then knows immediately.
Yeah, I can only speak for when I was there 20 years ago in Radio City Music Hall. The trades are not announced like that. You see a team flash up on the board, and then the details are said later. But that was 20 years ago. I have no idea how that is today. And they're in war rooms, so they're not actually, there during the draft. I don't know. I don't know how that happened. I guess we can just make Omar Khan and the Steelers the jackass of the week because they made him. They kind of look like jackasses in that situation, to be completely honest. Wrapping up here, overall, the other quarterbacks that went in the draft, Carson Beck goes to the Cardinals. Drew Aller, a guy that you were high on before the season started, Alon, goes to the Steelers. Garrett Nussmeier goes to the Chiefs. So, yeah, we thought the quarterbacks would be better than what they were in college football, but all situations where those guys can sit and learn from starters. Carson Beck probably has the best chance to be a starter, but not going to be day one. I thought the Jets had a pretty good draft with 3 first-round picks, going with David Bailey, Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end from Oregon, and Omar Cooper Jr. It's just 3 years ago, or 4 years ago now, they had the same situation where they drafted Zach Wilson, Garrett Wilson, I guess it was after that. It was Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, and Jermaine Johnson, and 2 of those guys are not on the team. So they need to hit on their draft picks going forward. And then the Browns, I think their draft was actually not bad. Getting names that we know and potential good talent, but Spencer Fano, Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston, Emmanuel McNeil Warren, the safety, and Peyton Barber, who was kind of a sleeper offensive tackle that people like. So, yeah, those are the guys that stand out to me. The teams, I should say, that stand out to me, where we'll see what happens. But, yeah, I would say overall, very interesting draft from the first round until the end yesterday.
Well, yeah, I thought it was a fun draft. I thought it was a draft where if you watch a lot of college football, you had a great time because it wasn't just, it was draft for people who watch a lot of college football because it wasn't a bunch of big time name recognition outside of maybe a Mendoza, Reese, and a Jeremiah Love. But I'm with you on the Browns. I like what the Browns did a lot. They picked up a quarterback, I think, in the 6th round, Green from Arkansas. So a really talented, physically talented guy. I don't know if he'll ever play, but hey, that's another quarterback in their crowded quarterback room. But I love what they did getting 2 wide receivers in KC and then Boston. I think that helps whoever ends up playing quarterback for them immensely. Spencer Fano was a good pick as well. Parker Brailsford, who's one of the better centers in this draft. I thought they had a good draft. I thought a lot of teams did well in a supposedly down talent year. There were, some head scratchers here and there, but overall, I thought teams did a really good job. So nothing to complain about. I thought the production of the whole thing was really good too at Pittsburgh. I thought Pittsburgh put on a good show for the draft. I thought the outfit and this is not about the players, but I thought the outfit that Roger Goodell wore was interesting. He looked like he was getting ready to go to like cocktail hour or something like that. He came out.
I didn't even notice.
Oh yeah. He came out like in an all like dark blue or black suit, and then with a black shirt as well. And it was like 2 buttons undone. And I went, oh, going a little cash here, a little after hours here, Mr. Goodell. So I thought that was
Roger the Goods Goodell is going to play a little bit after the draft to get after it.
Yeah, he looked like he thought the draft was in Vegas again and not in Pittsburgh. So I thought that was fascinating. A question I had for you, Derek, and this is more about the future of the NFL draft.
Yeah.
So I watched NFL Network's coverage of the draft. What is that going to look like now that NFL Network's not there was no I figured I'd ask you, but there was no like announcement put out about, was that like their Rich Eisen's last NFL draft with that current setup, or what's the deal? I mean, he's being retained, but yeah,
I don't know. I have no idea how that's going to work out. I think that going forward, it may be where we get a simulcast on NFL Network and ESPN of the same draft coverage. It could just be where, Rich and Mike Greenberg, Mel Kiper Jr. and Daniel Jeremiah, Schefter, and Ian Rappaport. It's a lot, but I have no idea what the future holds for the NFL Network and ESPN as far as I think I do like different broadcasts, or is it just where ESPN wants to have an alternate feed where you could watch Rich Eisen? I don't know if they'll see it as competition, but I have no idea, to be completely honest. I love NFL Network's coverage. I've always watched their coverage over ESPN, but I have no idea. I have no idea what to make of the future for the whole synergy of ESPN and NFL Network. One thing about this draft, it usually comes with player trades as well, and we didn't get a ton of that. We got, as we mentioned, D. Winters and Tyree Wilson. Jonathan Grenard, this was a long rumor trade from the Minnesota Vikings. He gets dealt to the Philadelphia Eagles for 2 third-round picks, and he gets a contract extension for, I think, 4 years and $100 million. But other guys that were rumored, Kenny Moore with the Colts did not get traded. Anthony Richardson, still on the Colts. Will Levis, still on the Tennessee Titans. George Pickens, I thought was going to get moved because the Dallas Cowboys came out and said, we're not giving him a long-term extension. He's going to play on the tag this year. And then David Mulugeta and George Pickens agreed to sign the franchise tender. And usually in that situation, that means that a trade's going to happen because he needs to sign that in order to be dealt. And I don't know if that's going to happen. If it would have happened, if it were to happen, it would have already happened probably in the first round or second round because he had a great season a year ago. I find it hard to believe that with his representation, they would just be okay with him playing on the franchise tag this year. But until I hear otherwise, I guess that's going to be the case. Same thing with Kyle Pitts. He's going to play on the franchise tag for the Falcons, it appears. And as I said, Kayvon Thibodeau, I don't know how many snaps he's going to see with this new Giants pass rush, but with him being a free agent in 2027, you got to believe that this is his final year with the Giants. So he's there for now, but if they don't play well, then maybe you could see him dealt when it comes to the trade deadline.
Yeah, in season, and there's always teams looking for pass rush, regardless of what the production is during the season or in the past. They will take a flyer on someone because if they really need pass rush and they think they can contend and that's going to help them, they will. So, yeah, Thibodeau is a situation to keep an eye on. I was a little fascinated by maybe not a lot of player movement on draft day specifically, but I was also pleasantly surprised by the amount of trades that did happen, especially in the first round. I really wasn't expecting that, Derek. Outside of the Niners trying to move down to just acquire more picks overall, I wasn't. Yeah. I was really not anticipating all the movement we saw in the first round. Even like for Dallas, for instance, I had them Miami, right? They took Caden Proctor. They made some moves. Dallas took Caleb Downs, but I just wasn't anticipating all the different movement we saw, whether it was the Jets or whoever else.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't anything, major. It wasn't anything like what we saw a year ago with the Jacksonville and the Browns doing a deal.
Yeah.
Or teams coming into the first round like the Falcons with the Rams or the Giants. Who they trade with a year ago to go into the first round again. Probably, I forget. Maybe it was the Browns. I forget who it was. But, I didn't think the trades were that astronomical, to be completely honest. I thought that they were fine. Just a little movement here or there. The Niners trading down, the Bills trading down, teams like the Tennessee Titans or whoever else that had early second round picks going back into the first round. Nothing crazy to me when it came to that. Nothing that impacts the 2027 draft class that I know a lot of people have talked about being held in higher regard than this draft class. But now it leads to this week and many weeks coming up where you have a lot of free agents still available. Juwan Jennings still available. All these wide receivers, Deebo Samuel, Tyreek Hill, but we'll see with the medical situation. The 49ers cleared up more cap space, so could they get a Joey Bosa? We'll see here. And the 49ers did address Brandon Ayuk in that situation, now that he was not dealt draft weekend, would he be released? And John Lynch said, no, not anytime soon. He picked up his phone and said, if people want to call us, go right ahead. So he knows the Washington Commanders want him, and he's waiting on his buddy Adam Peters to make a deal. But at this point, I get it. Like, if you just want to wait until Juwan and Debo and Stephon Diggs all sign, and you know that Washington didn't pivot to go to a different wide receiver, they're still the only team available, or still one of the last teams that would want Ayuk, then I get waiting until that, or still trying to work out a deal until, post June 1st. But if this is going to be a thing where it's drawn out until training camp or the season, then that's way too long for me. I'm sorry. Like, that's where, yes, Greg Rosenthal could be a little right that this is getting petty. Like, I get, like, wanting to get something in return for Ayuk, but once you announce to the world that you're not going to have him on your football team, then why would any team want to trade with you? So we'll see what happens here. I was anticipating that Ayuk was going to get released by tomorrow because they're just waiting for some team to offer trade compensation for this draft class. But the fact that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are saying, no, we're still going to wait, I'm willing to wait until June 1st, but if it goes past that, then I think this is getting a little too much.
What is the signal there? That's what I really wonder. And I hope it's not pettiness, because you should never operate your organization.
I highly doubt that.
Yeah, no, I highly doubt it too, because everybody involved is too smart to operate from that standpoint. But yeah, like what do you actually get in return now? That's what I wonder. What do you actually get in return?
A 7th round pick at the most. That's it.
You think like not even a sixth? I mean, yeah, like a 7th round pick just to get him off your books.
When the team announces he's not going to be part of your plans going forward,
yeah, the leverage
then
is
you ruin all leverage.
Yeah,
and Brandon Ayuk hasn't played football in a long time.
Yeah,
since 2024, week 5, whatever it was, week 7. You don't know how healthy he is. You don't know how he is mentally. Let's be honest. Yeah, and this whole pettiness of the Niners need to send a message to Brandon Ayuk. They sent a message when they got rid of his guaranteed money. So that's message received for Brandon Ayuk. This whole, like, we're going to keep him hostage and ruin his opportunities to go play elsewhere. The Niners are not doing that. I just wonder, like, how much longer they're willing to wait here when it's pretty clear the Commanders are not going to trade for him. And I think it'd be foolish on their part to trade anything for Brandon Ayuk when they know eventually he will be released. Okay, real quick before we get out of here, I know we'll be going super long on this one. I do want to talk about the NBA playoffs real quick because we haven't talked about it a lot. The Rockets, Jesus Christ, what a choke job that was with Game 3, where they were up 105-95 with 25 seconds left, and Marcus Smart makes an unbelievable play to get the steal, tip the ball up in the air, get fouled on a 3, shoots 3 free throws, and then LeBron gets another steal and gets a game-tying 3 at 101. The Lakers win the series. Or sorry, well, almost, going to win the series here. They're up 3-0 now, but Lakers win that game 112-100. And Kevin Durant wasn't available in this game. He's not available in Game 4 tonight either. And you have to wonder about, I love Kevin Durant. I've always supported him and defended him. But when it comes to the debate between,
getting choked up. I know you love KD, Derek.
I'm getting really choked up talking about LeBron James or Kevin Durant. Hold on one second, Alon. Sorry for a second.
Oh, you're good. Real quick, while Derek's clearing his throat here, Mac, I see your comment there about Malik Benson. Yeah, he was at Bama for a year, but I think return man, we talked about it a little earlier in the podcast, but I think return man is definitely what he slots in for, special teamers, depth guy. But we'll see. He's a speedy guy, but there's quite a few speedy guys on that roster. But Derek, continue.
No, I was going to say that I've always supported Kevin Durant and thought that he should have gotten his praise over LeBron James, but it's clear. I mean, Kevin Durant's moved around to so many different teams and hasn't been a difference maker for the Phoenix Suns when they had a bunch of talent, and now the Rockets. I don't know how this team pushed the Warriors to a Game 7 a year ago, and now they could potentially get swept by the Lakers without Luka Doncic, or sorry, without Luka and without Austin Reeves. So yeah, that's a bad look for Kevin Durant, especially with the bone bruise. I know he's injured, but come on, dude. Like you know, going around and pointing the finger at other places, being like it was, the Brooklyn Nets weren't setting me up to succeed. Same thing with the Phoenix Suns. The Rockets did have a lot of young talent, so I think it's just a missed opportunity for him. And I wonder what his the narrative will be on Kevin Durant when it's all said and done. When he went from team to team at the latter portion of his career, he didn't have a lot of playoff success.
Ring merchant, unfortunately. That's what it's going to be. It's just a mercenary looking for rings and wants to go to the best possible situation. The Rockets totally blew game 3. Incredible. I was watching that and I went, is this franchise like cursed in some way? Whether it's missing 21 straight threes or however many it was against the Warriors, whether it is consistently losing to the Warriors or now blowing, not insurmountable, but we don't see those kinds of comebacks in the NBA very regularly with 20 seconds left, right? Down by 6. Might see it in college every once in a while, but I mean, I guess this is what they get for Tracy McGrady scoring 15 points in 45 seconds. You made that deal when that happened, and now you're going to be eternally screwed over when it comes to clutch situations. I don't know. But yeah, as far as Durant goes, disappointing to not see him be the player that not even be available. And LeBron is just keeps defying father time in the playoffs, at least.
No, definitely. The Knicks dominate game 4, 114-98. Kuminga, a poor performance with only 10 points. So that series is tied up. The T-Wolves, unbelievable win last night. They're up 3-1 on the Nuggets without Dante DiVincenzo, who looks like he tore his Achilles and will be out for quite some time. And then Anthony Edwards gets a hyperextended knee, and he's going to miss weeks now. Somehow, some way, even without those two guys, the Timberwolves win 112-96 thanks to the defense of Rudy Gobert on Nikola Jokic. And I'm going to butcher his name here, but he used to play with the Chicago Bulls. Ayo Desunyu, or I'm not even going to try, sorry. 43 points against the Nuggets last night. Dosanumu, I think, I don't know. I'm going to keep fucking it up here. But the T-Wolves have just been in the Nuggets' head since that Game 7 win 2 years ago. They were up 20 at halftime, and then Anthony Edwards and the rest of the team were resilient in that victory. Jokic freaked out at the end of the game last night with Jaden McDaniels, I should say. He scores when the game's already in hand, and he didn't like that. So we'll see what the outcome of that is when they get into an altercation. Jokic has been a sore loser. He's been like that for quite some time now. But, yeah, I think there's a possibility for the Nuggets to come back in this series. But with the talent that they have with they picked up Cam Johnson from the Brooklyn Nets. They also picked up Tim Hardaway Jr. So, and my guy Michael Malone's not there anymore. I don't know where the Nuggets are going, but they definitely have issues against the Timberwolves, as you called it, Alon.
Yeah, I just figured Minnesota had more. I was not anticipating the injuries, of course. But so that is disappointing from the Nuggets standpoint. But to me, when I watch the Nuggets, it just seems like a team that has played so much basketball over the past, 3 or 4 years. And maybe this first round exit, if they do get bounced, is a blessing in disguise for them.
Yeah, maybe where they have to retool and figure out what the team's going to be in the future. So that's what it is right now with the NBA playoffs. And another NBA related story. My guy Klay Thompson fumbling the bag there with Megan Thee Stallion. Good Lord. Yeah. Accusations of him cheating on her. And, let's just be real, not surprising when it comes to NBA players or, if you see the Diana Rossini and Mike Vrabel situation, people are on the road all the time now. And that just happens when you're in that line of work, whether you're a athlete or a reporter. But, unfortunate situation for Klay Thompson. But whatever, hope for the best with him. Just real quick on Vrabel and Rossini, more stuff came out. Vrabel did his pre-draft press conference where he basically admitted to their affair. Didn't come out and say it, but said that he's had some hard conversations with his family and his team, and he stepped away from day 3 of the draft to go to counseling. And I thought initially, like, why does he have to do that? Does it have to be right now? But if it's where he's not that involved in the draft process and he values his family over his football team, then not the worst thing in the world. Mike Vrabel will not be fired. I've seen some people suggest that, but not going to be the case. So Diana Rossini, I don't know what her future holds now for her career. With, she deleted her Twitter account, and it's pretty clear what happened between them. So I hope the best for her too. But yeah, just a bad situation all the way around.
Yeah, I hate this story. I mean, I've said it so many times. I really don't like it, but
this will be the last time we talk about it, because I don't see why we need to keep bringing it up. There's some photos that resurfaced from 6 years ago too, where they were seen in a bar together kissing. But yeah, it's salacious. It's football and sex, so it's appealing to a mass audience. But I'm tired of it too, Alon.
No, I wasn't getting on you for bringing it up there, because it is important. It's just, I have a few thoughts on it. The counseling thing is so like corporate America. Like, oh, you got caught doing something. It's counseling. Let's, that'll solve it. I don't know if it'll solve it. They both made a horrible decision for both of their families. And yes, Ernie, you are correct. The son named Michael is diabolical.
Diana Rossini, after those photos resurfaced, she, had married and named her son Michael. So that's another thing that you could look into as well.
But yeah, he's not going to get fired. And I know there's people saying he should get fired. No, he shouldn't. I don't know. I wouldn't like the fact that there's a liar as my coach, but it's football. It's pro football. At the end of the day, there are things that have actually killed people or maimed people. And, there's people who've done that and they've still been able to do their job in the NFL. So we know the way the NFL works. But all that being said, you hope this doesn't be the Patriots better have a good season next year. This is what I will say, Derek. The Patriots better have a good season next year, because if they don't, what are all the questions going to be? Well, were you distracted during the offseason? Were you able to prepare the way you were? Yada, yada, yada. Like, if that happens, that is a nightmare for Mike Vrabel and that franchise. Robert Kraft, good backup to have if you get caught in a cheating scandal. So Robert Kraft is firmly standing behind Mike Vrabel. And I bet those conversations were very unpleasant for Vrabel with his family and whoever else he had to talk to on the team. I hope this doesn't affect them negatively going forward, because if it does, that would be a real damn shame. And for Diana Rossini, I feel very bad for her that she basically had what equated to like an ethics investigation at the New York Times / The Athletic. She's done there. She'll be back, but it's going to be a kind of a rehabilitation tour in terms of her rehabilitating her credibility, because unfortunately everybody in the Twitter sphere everywhere is saying, all the things that we've said before, Derek. Oh, she's only getting her information because she's sleeping with everybody. That's not true. So she'll land on her feet somewhere, but just an unfortunate situation and not something the NFL wants to have happening. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were multiple memos put out to all the coaches and everybody in the NFL saying, hey, mind your P's and Q's with the reporters.
100%. And yeah, I can't deny this is going to be a hard road for Diana Rossini to come back from. But then again, I will defend that she was a pretty good reporter throughout the years and didn't get all of her information primarily from sleeping with people. For the Vrabel counseling thing, I hear you, Alon, it's corporate. It's not like a team mandated counseling. I think it's just counseling that he's doing with his family. So I think that's different. But yeah, if you're going to preach as a leader of men to not have any distractions off the football field, then you definitely can't be a hypocrite. So you have to uphold that, and you have to still be that leader of men. So I understand why he addressed his team and got through that. Just a real quick pop culture catch up. The other night I watched Draft Day again because we're around the draft. And I'll just say this, that movie's insane. The fact that he trades away or trades for the first overall pick trades away 3 first-round picks to get the first pick. And then in the end, just drafts the guy that he wanted all along, Vontae Mack, and then somehow, some way gets all of his picks back by holding a pick hostage. It's insane. But if you think the Diana Rossini and Mike Vrabel scandal is, terrible, think about if in real life in the NFL, if you had a GM sleeping with his capologist.
Oh.
Like, that's an NFL produced movie. And the fact that they had that storyline in that movie, I'm like, damn. In hindsight now, that's like, wow. Can you imagine if that got out? If a GM was sleeping with his subordinate in that regard? Like, that's what happened to Ime Udoka.
Yeah, that's the power dynamic right there. So instantly we're thinking of like Vince McMahon type situations. This is not, I never thought about that there.
Degree, I'll say.
No. I'm not talking about all the crazy, horrible. I just mean in terms of a superior sleeping with someone, the GM is sleeping with someone who reports to him.
Exactly.
That is an NFL produced movie too.
Yeah, I know. And you could tell it's an NFL produced movie because they have a standing ovation for Roger Goodell when he comes out. But Sonny Weaver Jr., played by Kevin Costner, not a good guy. Sleeping with his subordinates and then breaking laptops of interns, doing everything that he wants to, going rogue, not helping out or not hearing the advice from his scouts and his coach. Kind of an asshole. That's your Jackass of the Week. All right, everybody. That is your show. We've gone way too long. This is the longest podcast we've done in quite some time, but we had to get to a lot of stuff with the draft, and I didn't want to touch on the NBA playoffs. To everybody in the chat, thank you for bearing with me today. Long podcast, messing up words and losing my voice, but thank you for sticking with us. And thank you for sticking with me, Alon.
Derek, you were fantastic. It was your finest hour.
Thank you. We got Ernie 1. We got Mac Van. We got Pat H. We'll see you guys on Wednesday. Alon, say what you always say, my friend.
Hey, you guys might think that Kalon Black was a reach for the Niners, but that's just your opinion, man.